Welcome back to the State of the Union. In case anybody is wondering what the State of the Union is, let's give you a quick little preview. Inflation slowly trending back to 2%, although there are concerns the second wave of inflation via services inflation could occur. Of course, we're going to watch Joe Biden, but I figure since that's not until 15 minutes from now, we've got a minute to catch you up in sort of the Kevin version, if you will. But anyway, we've got what's remarkable is that we have not had a jobless recession yet. That has shocked a lot of folks. Mostly because, the audio is really bad. There we go. Let's fix the audio. Hi. There. It's fixed. But anyway, so we've got inflation trending back to 2%. We've got concerns about the second wave of inflation. We've got still no joblessness recession. We've got, frankly, a lot of enthusiasm in a little bit in gold recently, a lot in Bitcoin, a lot in the stock market, except for Tesla. Overall, things seem to be doing pretty decently. The real estate market hasn't crashed yet. The latest bank that it looked like was going to fail actually ended up just getting bought like a wedge deal from good old Treasury Secretary Mnuchin. Remember that guy? The guy from Donald Trump's office, Donald Trump's Treasury Secretary, went straight into doing a wealth fund for the Saudis. In fact, took a treasury trip to Saudi Arabia using the government's plane just weeks before the end of his stay in office, so to speak, and landed a deal with the Saudis to create a wealth fund for them because, you know what they always say, need boots on the ground. And if you can get boots on the ground and a politician on the ground, hell, you got both. So anyway, now we are waiting for the State of the Union, and here we go. It looks like we're getting some introductory commentary here.
Republicans' rhetoric. Congress.
Nah, this is just sort of like an intro, no introductory rhetoric. It's scheduled to begin in about 13 minutes, so we'll kind of just we'll flip between we'll flip between Fox and, you know, which I always try to give a nice little balance between all the different channels, so we'll give some love to the various different ones. Let's see what they've got for us.
Holds the door like that for you?
You know, sometimes the Ubers in D.C., yeah, they'll get out and do it like that. So this is, there goes the senior staff. That would be the crew that was with him at Camp David the last couple days, helping him practice the speech. There goes his chief of staff, the first lady, and the president.
There we go.
There he is! It's Joe Biden leaving the White House to head over to Capitol Hill.
Jump, I need you. See y'all later. Yeah, for you.
So there you have
like
the
there
First
he
Lady,
is.
Jill Biden, and the president cracking a little joke right there. What did he just say?
Well, it sounded like he had some family or staff watching him leave from one of the balconies, and he said that they should not jump.
I've heard that line a couple times by the president. It might be running out of steam, but if you got it, you got it. Ducey, I'm finally glad that he's arrived in the Beast, and he's going to depart to the Capitol right now. We're hearing it's about 8 or 10 minutes, but when you're the president, you don't really have to worry about traffic.
You really don't. They don't usually have to stop at the stoplights.
Yeah, all right. So we got, honestly, I don't know how he's going to go from sitting in his car 11 minutes to when the State of the Union is supposed to begin to actually the State of the Union beginning on time. So I think as usual, the State of the Unions, they usually start late. So we'll be watching here closely. We'll see some of the footage we could see on various different channels here of Joe Biden heading on over as we prep. There we go. There they go. There's Jill and Joe, Jay and Jay, as we call them, heading over to the White House. Okay, that's just bad. But anyway, this will be fun. We'll add some commentary as well, as we usually do. And we'll see what they have for us. Again, I'm expecting we're going to hear things like 50-year low. You know what? We should create State of the Union bingo. How about that? State of the Union bingo. How about we make this one interactive, okay? So we'll do it together. State of the Union bingo. So what we're looking for is we're going to draw some lines here, make some bingo. How many lines are we going to draw today? We're going to draw 4 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. In the middle, we're going to put Joe shows up. Okay. So State of the Union bingo has begun. I'm going to go with a 50... Let's go with, we'll put that right here, 50-year low unemployment. All right, what else do we want to throw? Solving inflation. We'll probably do something like get the Republicans to work with us on the border. Yeah, he's going to kind of like, I wouldn't be surprised. He'll try to deflect, obviously, to the border. Okay. Somebody says we have some kind of faux pas. So maybe we do like a fall, a trip, or some kind of stumble. Okay. All right. That's pretty evil, but we'll go ahead and write it in there. He freezes. Okay. So I'll call that a stumble or freeze. We'll put that in there. We'll put that in there for 10 points. Okay, blame. I bet you he's not going to mention the word, the name Trump. So no mention of Trump, just a pronoun like the other candidate, something like that. Rate cuts. I don't think we're going to see that. That probably isn't going to go for him. Illegals. I would say, well, that's definitely going to be a teleprompter. They all have a teleprompter. Oh, raise taxes. That's right. We are probably going to see that. So, pay their fair share. We'll probably see some of that. That's a good one. We want to, well, we not necessarily want to, but you'll probably see some kind of announcement about increased tax on billionaires / corporations. Okay, so we'll see something here. And come on, man. Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah, what about Israel, Ukraine? Funding Ukraine. That's a good one. Funding Ukraine. I like that one. Anyway. Yeah. Like I know what you mean. He says anyway like he kind of forgot where he was, right? Okay. I like that one. Anyway. Like he forgot where he was. Okay, kind of harsh, but okay. Hey, it's Mitt. Yeah, that's so Mitt. Who remembers seeing, what was it? Oh, it was Gangnam Style, but it was Mitt Romney style.
Yeah, the feisty economic.
Oh, lower the cost of insulin. That's true. Lower the cost of insulin. Insulin costs, yeah. What about finish the job? That's a good one. I like that. Finish the job. Very good. Very good. Let's see here. How about mentions Obama? Interesting. Middle. Middle up, out. That line they always do from the bottom up and the middle out. From bottom up, middle out. I don't know. Does anybody even really know what that means? But anyway. Talks about his dad. Talks about Hunter. Okay, some of these things I don't think we're gonna hear about. Like we have to defeat Putin. I like that one. Defeat Putin, along with defeat Hamas, terrorists, something to that effect. Okay. Let's see if are we listening?
Works for a living, who's trying to feed.
No, there's no talk there. Electric vehicles, chips, infrastructure bills. I like that. Yep. Electric vehicles, charging network. How about China? China / independence from China, like chip independence. Separately, we'll do the CHIPS Act. We'll obviously do the Inflation Reduction Act. So we'll have those mentioned without a doubt. I don't know that we'll hear anything about NVIDIA, though. That is funny. That guy, Chuck Schumer gained some weight, bro. It's okay. It's okay. It's all right.
Dangerous president.
It's been dangerous for the American people. It's been dangerous for the world. There's nothing he can say tonight.
All right, won't pay attention here. Okay, all right. I got a few more boxes to fill in here. Corporate greed, build back better. Okay, could see that. Build Back Better, MAGA. I'll put it. I don't know that he's going to mention MAGA, but you know what? I'm going to put it. I could be wrong, so we'll put MAGA. Some negative comment. Some negative comment about MAGA, and then instead, or we'll do or Build Back Better. Something like that, okay? We'll do that. Cyber attack, what are they saying?
At the House floor in the United States Capitol, we are now just minutes
you want him
away
to talk about
from
pee-pees?
President Biden's
What?
third State of the Union.
Gross. That's gross. Why would you want that?
President Kamala Harris taking those familiar roles. It's possible.
There's Getz.
Most important speeches of President Biden's political career as he seeks re-election.
And it comes as the president faces historic low poll numbers.
Wage price spiral. I wouldn't expect that. Yeah, I see what you're saying, Max. Let's see here.
Questioned his support for Israel. Some of them in this group tonight. Also, big questions about his mental and mental ability to serve another term.
Now you're looking.
I can bet you he's practiced this many times, so I will expect that he will do just fine. 4 minutes away, and we're not entirely sure where El Motorcade is. Obviously, something on the border. So, independence from China. Get Republicans to work with us. We could separate that. Work with us. And then separately, we'll do border. Border, obviously. We got a few more to go here. And, I know. You don't want to go backwards, right? Don't, something to the effect of don't want to go backwards. We already threw finish the job in here because he's going to turn this into like a campaign thing. Student loan forgiveness for some. You think he'll say anything about the and the S? I don't know. Okay. Let's see here. All right.
House Republicans tonight are going to bring this border battle to the State of the Union, and things could get very heated at times. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia indicated to Fox News earlier today that there might be a repeat moment of where she calls out at the president and calls him a liar, just like she did at
Here's
the
the deal. I like
State
that.
of the Union.
I like here's the deal, and I like Asvuta Taminamaba. NATO. What was the one I said I just liked? NATO and the other one. I forgot. That was a good one. Yeah, NVIDIA is getting wild. But this is not the video for that.
For mentions of Gaza and how Democrats react to that, there could be some divisiveness on that side. Guys.
Yeah, maybe he'll mention our event in June, that he's coming to the event in June. That'd be cool. Come on, man. I think, did we put come on, man? I don't think that's a bad one. I'll put that down. I like the one. Come on. Come on, man. All right, that's a good one. That's a good one. Folks. Oh, okay. I'll do come on, man, or folks. Or folks. Folks. We got to finish the job. Come on, man. Something like that, you know.
The border last week. There in Texas, correspondent Jeff Paul joins us now from Eagle Pass, Texas. A big issue tonight. Good evening, Jeff.
Yeah, Brett, and it's arguably one of the top issues for voters all across the country. And when you speak with folks here in Eagle Pass, Texas, they all sort of agree they are frustrated with government officials at all levels across all party affiliations. But many of them agree and credit Texas Governor Greg Abbott with actually doing something that is now pushing migrants away from areas like here in Eagle Pass to other parts of the U.S.-Mexico border. They all wonder when it will be.
Lauren made banana bread. Shout out to Lauren. It's really good. She's also being a, killer mom. She's doing a great job. 7 kids. Crazy.
That President Biden could say during the State of the Union that would somehow.
All right, if you want a screenshot so you can play bingo with us, here is the bingo card in the event that you want to play bingo. I'm going to hide myself here for a moment. This is Joe Biden bingo. Right there. There. Okay. You can take a screenshot right now. We've got no mention of Trump. Just a pronoun, student loan forgiveness, NATO, defeat Putin, fall, trip, or some kind of stumble or freeze, defeat Hamas terrorists, come on, or folks, CHIPS Act, China, independence from China. Wait. Oh, wait. You got to use this side. There. Oh, it makes it too small. I can't fit it all. It's too much. Oh, well. CHIPS Act, Inflation Reduction Act, there. Now you can take a screenshot and just zoom in. Electric vehicles, charging network, increase taxes on billionaires, corporations, pay their fair share, get Republicans to work with us, border, finish the jobs, finish finish the job. Let's get rid of the S there. Border, bottom up, middle out. Some negative comment about MAGA. Our freebie is Joe shows up. Get Republicans to work with us. 50-year unemployment, low, solving inflation. All right, here we go. Oh, they're ready to play the, what's it called? Here comes the, what's the song they play for the presidents?
Look at the U.S. Capitol, a beautiful evening. Tonight's State of the Union address. Good evening from Washington. I'm Brett Baer.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Martha McCallum. Any moment now, President Biden will be announced on the House floor with the familiar call of the House Sergeant.
Oh, it's Hail to the Chief. That's it. Hail to the Chief. Good job.
All on the way.
There you see Mitt Romney talking to Joe Manchin. Seems like they're pretty engaged in some conversation. A lot of that happens on the sidelines as you have a lot of lawmakers waiting a long time in the chamber. A lot of folks, expressing themselves different ways. Republicans, some of them wearing buttons about the border, others dressed in white on the Democratic side in solidarity. Let's set the stage now with White House correspondent Peter Ducey with a preview of the president's speech. Good evening, Peter.
Good evening, Brett. Officials here at the White House think that most people that are going to watch tonight haven't been very politically active so far this cycle.
That, I think, is correct, and I agree with. Hey, it's Nancy, the best trader in the world.
Comeback story where President Biden will talk up how many jobs have been created since 2021. Yeah. He will blame Republicans.
Well, a lot of those will still come out of COVID.
Suggest his age shouldn't be an issue because Donald Trump is...
I don't think he's going to bring up his age. I disagree with that.
The president has also been practicing dealing with hecklers when he talks Gaza, possibly from progressives in his own party.
Oh, that's true, Ilham Omar.
To get into position, Peter, thank you.
Traitor or traitor? Oh, well, that's up to you all to decide.
They've timed all of this out, but we also have the walk out after the speech. We expect this speech to be about an hour, but with applause lines.
No way.
Union address. I do know who knows. Dana Perino has been around the block. She's co-anchor of America's Newsroom, co-host of The Five. Harold Ford Jr., former Tennessee congressman, co-host of The Five. John Roberts.
Oh my gosh. The first two Biden State of the Unions each lasted about just over an hour. 73 minutes long in 2023, 62 minutes long in 2022.
Well, I think unlike a lot of these speeches where we're preoccupied,
they're like,
the president will say about this issue or that issue and what program he may announce or what steps he may announce he's taking to deal, for example, with the border. What the big focus tonight really is on his demeanor, how he seems. Does he seem energetic and authoritative, and will he be smooth and polished? You know, we've seen...
He will have practiced this about 17,000 times. I think the last 3 days were all practice. I mean, I guess I don't blame that. I mean, this is probably one of the most visible, important speeches by the president. You know, they do press conferences all of the time. Remember back during COVID, Donald Trump would show up to the press conferences himself and just rail on reporters? And then he had Kayleigh McEnany take over. That was entertaining.
President Biden and his likely challenger, soon to wrap that all up, former President Trump, who is taking to Truth Social already, saying, quote, the president is very substantially late. Not a good start.
Very substantially late. Come on, Trump was late to like every single one of his events. But whatever. Why not? You know, just if you're gonna play politics, why not? That's kind of entertaining. Something went wrong. Truth Social, I think, is crashing right now. I don't think people can get it to work. Like, mine says network failed. Something isn't right. Let me see if... But that's actually kind of funny. That means he's getting a lot of attention on Truth. That's going to send Dwack up if that's true. If they're getting some kind of overload on their servers. People have been speculating on Dwack, Donald Trump's SPAC, for this media group here for a while. Yeah, nothing loads for me.
If the concerns about the problems within his own party are a minor annoyance or a genuine crisis.
John, it's always interesting storylines. One of them is expelled GOP Congressman George Santos is on the floor. It's a privilege that former members have, and he decided to take it. That's just a bizarre thing that's happening. But your thoughts on the speech tonight?
I think a little bit of a minor story in the overall. I think what we're going to see here tonight is opening salvo in the main general election campaign, and there's indications that the Democrats are going to be fighting this around abortion very hard. They've got a couple of guests that are in the First Lady's box. Latoya Beasley, she was an IVF patient in Alabama who was just about to go her embryo transfer and had to delay it because they shut down IVF. Another was Kate Cox, who had a baby with
IVF shut down in Alabama. All right. Oh, nope. I got as far as loading his page. Oh, here we go. There is nothing he can say tonight that can absolve him from letting 15 million people into our country illegally. Has it been that many? I want to see where that claim is coming from. Let's see what we can learn. Oh, what is this? I see a 10.2 number here. If some 10 million have crossed the border in the last 3 years since Biden became president, we'd be looking at 15 to 20 million more by the time he leaves office in 2029 if he's reelected. This is an opinion column in The Hill, January 2024, actually. January 23rd. This was just posted. And this is an opinion author. The number of illegal immigrants in the country has roughly doubled under Biden. The United States has some 10.2 illegal immigrants. Had some 10.2 illegal immigrants in 2020 and another 10 million during Biden's presidency in those 3 years. Interesting. Okay, well, we're going to have to parse out those numbers there because that doesn't make it very clear. But yeah, I guess it has been in the nature of millions. That's wild. We'll keep fact-checking that.
And he's come on shows all across.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Pew Research Group. Let's see here. The estimated total population of unauthorized immigrants living in the United States was about 10.5 million in 2021. Okay, got it. That makes sense.
And finally, to those in the chamber, as someone that had the blessing and the privilege to serve in that chamber,
what?
I hope members of Congress and chamber guests show the respect the presidency deserves, show the respect the country deserves. Let's not deal with the gimmicks. And
this is them talking about like them shouting and heckling during the event. I don't know. I mean, I get it. Like it's respectful not to shout at people, but they usually do it for, quite frankly, political gain. You know, everybody posts viral clips of it on the internet. I mean, social media has really encouraged the wildness. So again, it may also make sense. I mean, that's just the way people get votes these days. I'm not condoning it, but all right, where is Joe? Did he make it?
Here, if he seizes it and is able to do it.
I think that it's interesting that you say that because the mood in the country is pretty dark. And I feel like, in a way, people have sort of tuned out Washington. They don't think it's going to help them. They don't see or hear from Washington like how things are going to get better for them. And also the chaos that President Biden talks about when the Trump years. I think that when you see people say, 72% of people say the country's going in the wrong direction, that's because they feel like their lives are chaotic now.
Let me bring in former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. He joins us.
Quickly, while we wait for McCarthy there, I'm throwing on eHack right now the link to that Pew piece if you want to see it, where we have 10.5 million in the number of unauthorized illegal immigrants remain mostly stable from 2017 to 2021. That does include Biden's first year in office and most of the Trump years there. I'm going to throw the image on as well, so if you want, it's easier to see it. So I'll put that up in just a moment. But let's listen in to Kevin McCarthy.
The part that the listeners and the viewers really don't know is whatever somebody says in that chambers you can hear, but you don't get a pickup on television. When you sit behind the president, it's actually hard to hear him when he speaks there. And it is a moment in time for whoever's president to really have a bully pulpit, to lay out and speak to the American public. Now, if I'm going to talk to my former members of the Republican conference, I would say don't take the bait if he wants to say something negative to get you to react. Be polite, listen to it and go through, because that never plays well on television. And what's interesting, before this night starts, There'll be a whole group of Republicans and Democrats who will go greet the president beforehand in the chambers to the side and escort him in. And then as the speech begins, you'll see whether he's going to lay out. And this is an election year, so I know this is going to be an election speech with election guests. And for Republicans, listen, be respectful, and get through it.
You see Senator Mark Kelly there, and in the distance, the Chief Justice and Justice Sotomayor. Interesting that obviously in the background of all of this are the legal cases, some of them at the Supreme Court, including immunity, that will be decided soon. I think we have the First Lady, Jill Biden, arriving.
Jill Biden arriving in the chamber, and she is joined, as John pointed out before, by two women who have had experiences with IVF and with abortion. Also, a cancer nurse is joining her this evening. Several guests. I mean, this whole tradition used to be maybe one or two people. Now the list from the White House is about 20 people long. There's Nancy Pelosi, the former Speaker of the House.
Very cool. Yeah. Okay, I've updated that. It's unclear. I believe this is the end of 2021 where you'll see these immigration numbers. I threw those on EHAC, and we'll keep seeing what Trump's saying in the meantime.
The president's cabinet.
President's cabinet.
And so the cabinet walks in. Speaker McCarthy, we see Secretary Blinken, and behind him, Secretary Austin. The defense.
Again, Donald Trump says there's nothing he can say tonight that can absolve him from letting 15 million people into our country illegally. He'll probably blame me, but I had the safest border in the history of the country, so that won't go very far. That is Donald Trump's claim on Truth right now.
The goals of the election and laying out a vision for his next term.
I think it's going to try to be talking to his own base. He wants to motivate them to get behind him, because that is a place that the President Biden currently has a real problem with. He wants to talk about successes, and it would be smart of him to talk about where they can work together. This is the one chance to...
Well, he will do that. They'll talk about how they can work together on the border, but then what Joe Biden will almost certainly do is blame Republicans for holding up any kind of aid or packages or whatever. But that's the same thing that Trump did with Democrats.
When he ran for the office, it was open. Now it's a report card on the job that he has done. So he's going to try to check off and say, I kept this promise, this promise, this promise. And if you elect me again, this is further where I'll be able to go.
Speaker McCarthy, Pete Buttigieg entering the room. We just saw Dennis Sullivan, the Veterans Affairs. He had a difficult week over the famous World War II kiss photograph, which some underling had hoped to cancel from all of the VA hospitals and get rid of that photo. There's Mayorkas, obviously the man who is in charge of the Department of Homeland Security. And here's the next message from former President Donald Trump. There's nothing he can say tonight that can absolve him from letting 15 million people into our country illegally. He'll probably blame me, but I had the safest border.
Yeah, we just read that out. I posted that at DHAC as well, and we added some context to that in research. Also, 10 minutes ago, which was just 2 minutes after 6 p.m., Donald Trump said the president is very substantially late. Not a good start, but let's give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm sure he has very important things to do, but he is just now getting in the car. They will have to drive very, very quickly, and just don't want to be late to the State of the Union. They will need Mario Andretti to be at the wheel of the limo.
Through here, and then we will get the announcement from William McFarland, House Sergeant at Arms. I want to bring in the panel. Harold, your thoughts on this night as we're setting the table here. The former president is right. The president is behind schedule here. Usually these things are to the minute. But this is a big moment for President Biden.
Look, sheepishly, President Biden may be saying, look, everybody thinks I'm old. They joke about how I go to bed early. Well, I'll show them. I'll show up a little late. I'll speak a little longer, and I'll stay in the chamber a little longer than some do. I think we've all framed it right. He's got a couple things that he can deal with. He can talk about the issues, and he can talk about the things he wants to do. The one thing he can't do is reverse his age. So he's got to show strength tonight. He's got to show he's in command tonight.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think this would be an opportunity for him. At the very least, even if he doesn't convince Republicans to vote for him, which, of course, we don't expect that, I think what you'll find is an attempt by Joe Biden to make sure he doesn't lose his existing Democrats, right? That's also very, very important. You don't want to lose your current voters.
Common ground on some of the important issues. If he's able to express that, it'll be a big success for him tonight.
Well, one area
We'll
where
see.
common ground would be very helpful is on the border, John Roberts. And we heard earlier today that we shouldn't expect any executive order, that he won't pull the levers that are at his disposal as President of the United States to remain in Mexico, to end catch and release. He's not going there, it appears.
He's standing by his proclamation that he's done all he can and that there's nothing else he can do, whereas, anybody will tell you, President Trump got the lowest immigration numbers in recent history, pretty much totally through executive order. And Brett, I think somebody is watching, because we mentioned a second ago that the Democrats are going to fight this election on abortion. Republicans are going to try to fight it on immigration. Donald Trump just put out on Truth Social, there's nothing he can say, Biden, that could absolve him from letting 15 million people into our country illegally. He'll probably blame me, but I had the safest border in history.
So
if
the former president wants to call in, we're happy to put him, instead of reading the Truth Social posts.
He just might.
Yeah, he may just might.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Britt,
but it's an indication that, it's going to be immigration against abortion, I think, is some of the main issues.
Britt, a lot of it is how this is delivered, because there's so many stories about his age and what things look like. What about that thing that Harold talked about, the low expectations, the low bar that's essentially set?
Where's Joe? Jill's obviously come in, but I still don't see where Joe is.
For the president to clear.
Hey, it's Elizabeth Warren.
And he will be greatly aided, I think, in terms of how the public reacts.
Wasn't she Indian?
Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has already said, I think, today to us here at Fox that she feels that decorum is not an issue because, decorum was broken by what Joe Biden did on this, that, and the other thing. And of course, she yelled at him the last time he was in the chamber, and she or someone else on the.
I would not be surprised if Marjorie Taylor Greene shouts out again. She's always the shouter. Shout, 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 shout. Always shout, 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 shout. So we'll see if it happens again.
Greene, she was bringing up, he basically accused Republicans of wanting to.
Let's see what they're saying on another channel just to balance this out a little bit. Oh, is this the guy? Is he going to yell? The President of the United States.
Concerns about his acumen and
not yet.
Notwithstanding, he was able to take that moment and ad lib and say, "Oh, so members of the Republican Party, you agree with me." Let's listen in for this big, big, big moment for President Biden.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
Look, they didn't play the song. Where's the song? We have to watch closely for our bingo card if there's any trip or anything.
20 minutes. Usually they give them 10 minutes from the speech to the door, and it took them a lot. But all these lawmakers, they post up and they try to get FaceTime with President Biden or the president.
I have to say, I think
parties.
Fox is about 10 seconds faster than CNN. So we'll keep an eye on that.
Let's see if we can listen in for a second.
We ain't gonna hear any of this. Hey, there's purple hair. Joe Biden. Where's the song? They forgot to play the song. Here's Chuck.
Behind him, obviously, you see the leadership, as Speaker McCarthy was talking about, Senator Schumer and Senator McConnell, who just recently announced that this is his last time representing Kentucky and being the leader.
Oh, did the White House turn off comments on their live stream of this? That's interesting. They should have that up. What's up with that? Censoring the comments.
There's Nicole Malliotakis, Republicans and Democrats welcoming him. And there you've got a glimpse of Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's got a big red Make America Great hat on. And she is ready to roll.
The shirt says, "Say her name."
Yeah, it's true. Look at this. Comments turned off, and there's no live stream. Chat is disabled for this live stream, and comments are turned off. Joe, what are you doing, buddy?
Are wearing, and he Not surprisingly, went right by.
He may be
MTG.
hugging the left side of the aisle on that part of the walk down.
Yeah, you can see her with the Say Her Name, Laken Riley shirt. Like, there's an empty chair in the chamber tonight to represent Laken Riley. Her family was invited by Congressman Michael Collins. Understandably, they are not ready to attend anything at this point. They're deeply grieving. And this president has not reached out to her family at all. She, no doubt, is becoming a symbol of so many individuals who have been violently attacked.
The giant MAGA hat there. That's funny. Look at it.
And many, many people across this country. The president's polling is dismal on this. That's Tom Suozzi.
That's kind of funny.
Who took George Santos' seat in Long Island.
So, Britt, we've covered so many of these, and usually it's Sheila Jackson Lee, who was.
Yes.
There she is. Look, even as I called her name out.
Right on cue.
Right there, posted up. You've seen her there many times, Britt.
Yeah, I haven't. It's an amazing moment because you see these politicians just without any hesitation, just reaching over, leaning in, touching the president. Looking for a moment on national television.
Yeah, you need those campaign donations. We got a big election coming up. Oh, come on, get the selfie going. Two-handed selfie. Okay, all right. Usually we go for one hand and the thumb, but that's all right. We can go for two hands this time.
Good, pretty good.
So a lot of pearls there.
Again, and that's why I say that this is set up for a president to have success.
Mitt Romney style.
Those speeches written for you by a team of professionals. You have a chance to practice it for several days.
Yeah. This is all going to be written by other people. 100% he's been practicing this. Probably, honestly, I would guess for over a week. They had this prepped a while ago.
This is the least cohesive cabinet that I have seen in the time I've...
Where's Nancy Pelosi? Fox is just complaining over here. That's okay. That's what they do. When Biden's on TV, it's okay. It's all right. Everybody's got their thing they got to do. Let's listen over here. The Republicans!
He's enjoying
he's
the
going
slide.
way too slowly.
Yeah, Senator Gillibrand there.
Senator, he's going to talk to every single person in that room.
And he's look, he's fired up about it.
He's enjoying it. The hat is an incredibly tacky choice.
So stupid.
They're making fun of the MAGA girl. Of course they are.
There's nothing.
I told you they'd make fun of them.
But it's so beneath the dignity of the office that she holds, regardless of, the QAnon stuff and all of that. She's a member of the United States Congress. At some point, one would think you would
classic and
aspire
expected
to have
there.
a minimal amount of dignity in your presentation. But she has no...
Gillibrand went to UCLA for law school. I went to UCLA, in case you don't remember. Yeah, good for her.
We've moved from selfies. Can you
He
stand
likes to
still?
take selfies.
Yeah.
It's sometimes easier, you think, right? Like, because people get nervous when they see you or whatever, so they fumble with it. He's like, I'll do it. I got long arms, I'll do it. Yeah.
He loves to call people's family members. So if he
I was
does
just
that,
waiting for him to make a call. I was thinking that might be next.
I
Maybe
feel
on the way out.
Nicole, you and Jen,
That's a good
as former staffers, are having PTSD about the speed with which he is just like getting the principal to where he needs to be. Just feels like we're moving. Molasses seems fast.
Yeah, this is 23 minutes in so far.
This is Ketanji Brown Jackson, his
almost
appointee
there now.
first. Almost
Get
there
around
now.
the corner and up the
Getting
dais.
there. Speaking with there you go, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Speaking with both the liberal and conservative justices on his way up to the podium now.
Nancy!
I'm guessing, Jen, you know the answer. I'm guessing this pumps him up.
Yes, this pumps him up. And if you're sitting in the White House right now, you're thrilled by this because we're all here watching it and talking about it. And this shows him a person who's been caricatured as somebody that nobody in the Democratic Party wants to run for president. And people are trying to touch him and do selfies with him. So it paints a very different picture. He seems joyful. He probably is having a good time.
You think they're going to end up debating? I know Trump challenged him to a debate not that long ago. We've got Donald Trump 23 seconds ago. They are really late. Very disrespectful to our country. Then Donald Trump wrote, who kissed him on the cheek with lipstick? Now he's got lipstick on his face. How stupid of her. Crooked Joe is making his way to the chamber. Very disrespectful to some. Not good. Wow. Joe Manchin had it made. He was one of the most popular politicians in America, but then, as he usually does, blew it. He approved the Inflation Reduction Act, and he was toast. Never recoverable.
An interesting...
Thankfully, we won't have to be looking at Rhino Mitt much longer.
Hillary Clinton.
Maxine Waters, nice woman, even though she's constantly saying she wants to beat up or kill people on the opposite side of the aisle.
Then you really think they take too long.
I feel like Trump's like in the room with us over a beer, just like constantly yapping. I mean, he's posting like every 30 seconds here. It's kind of funny. I'll pay attention to him and we'll read out some of the good ones. So far, I've read out all of them, actually. Donnie T.
Let's listen in.
Yes, let's listen.
Just close the fucking door. Close the door.
Oh, J-Pal's there.
Thank you.
Classic politician thing, by the way, to pretend like you recognize somebody in the audience and either poke or look at them or acknowledge them. Somehow very, very common, even though you can't see anything.
Good evening. Good evening. If I were smart, I'd go home now. Mr. Speaker, Madam Vice President, members of Congress, my fellow Americans, in January 1941,
oh, here we go.
Franklin Roosevelt came to this chamber to speak to the nation, and he said, I address you at a moment unprecedented in the history of the Union. Hitler was on the march. War was raging in Europe. President Roosevelt's purpose was to wake up Congress and alert the American people that this was no ordinary time. Freedom and democracy were under assault in the world. Tonight, I come to this same chamber to address the nation. Now, it's we who face an unprecedented moment in the history of the Union. And yes, my purpose tonight is to wake up the Congress and alert the American people that this is no ordinary moment either. Not since President Lincoln and the Civil War have freedom and democracy been under assault at home as they are today. What makes our moment rare is that freedom and democracy are under attack both at home and overseas at the very same time. Overseas, Putin of Russia is on the march, invading Ukraine and sowing chaos throughout Europe and beyond. If anybody in this room thinks Putin will stop at Ukraine, I assure you he will not. But Ukraine can stop Putin. Ukraine can stop Putin if we stand with Ukraine and provide the weapons that needs to defend itself. That is all. That is all Ukraine is asking. They're not asking for American soldiers. In fact, there are no American soldiers at war in Ukraine, and I'm determined to keep it that way. But now, assistance to Ukraine is being blocked by those who want to walk away from our world leadership. It wasn't long ago when a Republican president named Ronald Reagan thundered, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Now my predecessor, a former Republican president, tells Putin, quote, do whatever the hell you want. That's a quote. A former president actually said that bowing down to a Russian leader, I think it's outrageous, it's dangerous, and it's unacceptable. America is a founding member of NATO, the military alliance of democratic nations, created after World War II to prevent war and keep the peace. And today, we've made NATO stronger than ever. We welcomed Finland to the alliance last year. And just this morning, Sweden officially joined, and their minister is here tonight. Can they stand up? Welcome.
Right next to Jill.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. And they know how to fight. Mr. Prime Minister, welcome to NATO, the strongest military alliance the world has ever seen. I say this to Congress, we have to stand up to Putin. Send me a bipartisan national security bill. History is literally watching. History is watching. If the United States walks away, it will put Ukraine at risk. Europe is at risk. The free world will be at risk, emboldening others to do what they wish to do us harm. My message to President Putin, who I've known for a long time, is simple. We will not walk away.
Sweden became a NATO member March 7th, 2024. That's this year. That's like today.
I will not bow down. In a literal sense, history is watching. History is watching. Just like history watched 3 years ago on January 6th, when insurrectionists stormed this very Capitol and placed a dagger to the throat of American democracy. Many of you are here on that darkest of days. We all saw with our own eyes the insurrectionists were not patriots. They'd come to stop the peaceful transfer of power, to overturn the will of the people. January 6th lies about the 2020 election and the plots to steal the election posed a gravest threat to U.S. democracy since the Civil War. But they failed. America stood. America stood strong, and democracy prevailed. We must be honest. The threat to democracy must be defended. My predecessor and some of you here seek to bury the truth about January 6th. I will not do that. This is the moment to speak the truth and to bury the lies. Here's the simple truth. You can't love your country only when you win.
Trump called that walk, by the way, the longest walk in presidential history.
As I've done ever since being elected to office, I ask all of you, without regard to party, to join together and defend democracy. Remember your oath of office of defending against all threats, foreign and domestic. Respect free and fair elections. Restore trust in our institutions. And make clear political violence has absolutely no place in America, zero place. Again, it's not hyperbole to suggest history is watching. We're watching. Your children and grandchildren will read about this day and what we do. History is watching another assault on freedom. Joining us tonight is Latoya Beasley, a social worker from Birmingham, Alabama. 14 months ago, she and her husband welcomed a baby girl thanks to the miracle of IVF. She scheduled treatments to have that second child, but the Alabama Supreme Court shut down IVF treatments across the state, unleashed by a Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade. She was told her dream would have to wait. What her family got through should never have happened. Unless Congress acts, it could happen again. So tonight, let's stand up for families like hers. To my friends across the aisle, don't keep this waiting any longer. Guarantee the right to ABS. Guarantee it nationwide. Like most Americans, I believe Roe v. Wade got it right. I thank Vice President Harris for being an incredible leader defending reproductive freedom and so much more.
Just want to mention, if it's an embryo, it's got to be implanted in somebody at some point. So I don't know. I guess I don't understand why you can't transfer the embryo in. How is it going to become a human?
My predecessor came to office determined to see Roe v. Wade overturned. He's the reason it was overturned, and he brags about it. Look at the chaos that has resulted. Joining us tonight is Kate Cox, the wife and mother from Dallas. She's become pregnant again and had a fetus of a fatal condition. Her doctor told Kate that her own life and her ability to have children in the future were if she didn't act. Because Texas law banned her ability to act, Kate and her husband had to leave the state to get what she needed. What her family got through should have never happened as well, but it's happening in too many others. There are state laws banning the freedom to choose, criminalizing doctors, forcing survivors of rape and incest to leave their states to get the treatment they need. Many of you in this chamber and my predecessor are promising to pass a national ban on reproductive freedom. My God, what freedom else would you take away? Look, it's a decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. The Supreme Court majority wrote the following, and with all due respect, justices, women are not without electoral power. Electoral or political power. You're about to realize just how much you're right about.
Yeah, again, I want to be clear about that. Most states do allow abortion if there's a fatal threat to the life of the mother. Most states.
Clearly, those bragging about overturning Roe v. Wade have no clue about the power of women. But they found out when reproductive freedom was on the ballot. We won in 2022 and 2020, and we'll win again in 2024.
I think it was a fetal anomaly. Texas has fetal anomaly bans, but life of mother can abort.
Force the right to choose. I promise you, I'll restore Roe v. Wade as the law of the land again.
That just lets states decide. Remember, removing Roe v. Wade.
America cannot go back. I'm here tonight to show what I believe is the way forward, because I know how far we come. 4 years ago next week, before I came to office, the country was hit by the worst pandemic and the worst economic crisis in a century. Remember the fear, record losses. Remember the spikes in crime and the murder rate, raging virus that took more than 1 million American lives, of loved ones, millions left behind. A mental health crisis of isolation and loneliness. A president, my predecessor, failed the most basic presidential duty that he owes to American people, the duty to care. I think that's unforgivable.
Somebody just shouted lies.
I was determined to get us through one of the toughest periods in the nation's history. We have. It doesn't make news in 1,000 cities and towns. The American people are writing the greatest comeback story never told. So let's tell the story here. Tell it here and now. America's comeback is building the future of American possibilities, building an economy from the middle out and the bottom up, not the top down, investing in all America, in all Americans, to make sure everyone has a fair shot, and we leave no one behind. The pandemic no longer controls our lives. The vaccines that saved us from COVID are now being used to beat cancer. turning setback into comeback. That's what America does. That's what America does. Folks, my inherited economy is on the brink. Now our economy is literally the envy of the world. 15 million new jobs in just 3 years, a record, a record. Unemployment at 50-year lows.
Got it.
A record 16 million Americans are starting small businesses, and each one is a literal act of hope. With historic job growth and small business growth for Black and Hispanics and Asian Americans, 800,000 new manufacturing jobs in America and counting. Where is it written we can't be the manufacturing capital of the world? We are, and we will. More people have health insurance today. More people have health insurance today than ever before. The racial wealth gap is as small as it's been in 20 years. Wages keep going up. Inflation keeps coming down. Inflation has dropped from 9% to 3%, the lowest in the world, and tending lower. The landing is and will be soft.
Wow.
And now, instead of importing foreign products and exporting American jobs, we're exporting American products and creating American jobs. Right here in America, where they belong. And it takes time, but the American people are beginning to feel it. Consumer studies show consumer confidence is soaring. Buy America has been the law of the land since the 1930s. Past administrations, including my predecessor, including some Democrats as well in the past, failed to buy American. Not anymore. On my watch, federal projects that you fund, like helping build American roads, bridges, and highways, will be made with American products and built by American workers. Creating good-paying American jobs. And thanks to our CHIPS and Science Act, the United States is investing more in research and development than ever before. During the pandemic, a shortage of semiconductors, chips, that drove up the price of everything from cell phones to automobiles. And by the way, we invented those chips right here in America. Well, instead of having to import them, private companies are now investing billions of dollars to build new chip factories here in America, creating tens of thousands of jobs. Many of those jobs paying $100,000 a year and don't require a college degree. In fact, my policies have attracted $650 billion in private sector investment in clean energy, advanced manufacturing, creating tens of thousands of jobs here in America. And thanks to our bipartisan infrastructure law, 46,000 new projects have been announced all across your communities. And by the way, I noticed some of you strongly voted against it, or they're cheering on that money coming in. I like it. I'm with you. I'm with you. And if any of you don't want that money in your district, just let me know. Modernize our roads and bridges, ports and airports, public transit systems. Removing poisonous lead pipes so every child can drink clean water without risk of brain damage. Providing affordable high-speed internet for every American, no matter where you live, urban, suburban, or rural communities, in red states and blue states. Record investments in tribal communities. Because of my investment in the family farm, because I invested in family farms led by my Secretary of Agriculture, who knows more about this than anybody I know, we're better able to stay in the family for those farms and their children and grandchildren won't have to leave home to make a living. It's transformative. The great comeback story is Belvedere, Illinois, home to an auto plant for nearly 60 years. Before I came to office, the plant was on its way to shutting down. Thousands of workers feared for their livelihoods. Hope was fading. Then I was elected to office, and we raised the Belvedere repeatedly with auto companies, knowing unions would make all the difference. The UAW worked like hell to keep the plant open and get these jobs back, and together we succeeded. Instead of auto factories shutting down, auto factories reopening, a new state-of-the-art battery factory is being built to power those cars there at the same. The folks of Belvedere, I say, instead of your town being left behind, your community is moving forward again. Because instead of watching auto jobs of the future go overseas, 4,000 union jobs with higher wages are building the future in Belvedere right here in America. Here tonight is UAW President Shawn Fain, a great friend and a great labor leader. Shawn, where are you? Stand up. And Dawn Sims, a third-generation worker, UAW worker at Belvedere. Shawn, I was proud to be the first president to stand on the picket line, and today, Dawn has a good job in her hometown, providing stability for her family and pride and dignity as well. Showing once again, Wall Street didn't build America. They're not bad guys. They didn't build it, though. The middle class built the country, and unions built the middle class. I say to the American people, when America gets knocked down, we get back up. We keep going. That's America. That's you, the American people. It's because of you America's coming back. It's because of you our future is brighter. It's because of you that tonight we can proudly say the state of our union is strong and getting stronger.
Donald Trump just fact-checked that IVF was just approved in Alabama, worth noting. I'm going to check that too.
Tonight, I want to talk about the future of possibilities that we can build together. A future where the days of trickle-down economics are over, and the wealthy and the biggest corporations no longer get all the tax breaks. And by the way, I understand corporations. I come from a state that has more corporations invested than every one of your states in the state of the United States combined. And I represented it for 36 years. I'm not anti-corporation, but I grew up in a home where trickle-down economics didn't put much on my dad's kitchen table. That's why I determined to turn things around so middle class does well. When they do well, the poor have a way up and the wealthy still do very well. We all do well. And there's more to do to make sure you're feeling the benefits of all we're doing. Americans pay more for prescription drugs than anywhere in the world. It's wrong, and I'm ending it.
Trump argues, by the way, that NATO is strong because Donald Trump made them pay their bills.
With the law that I proposed and signed, not one of you Republican buddies voted for it. We finally beat Big Pharma. Instead of paying $400 a month or thereabouts for insulin with diabetes, and it only costs $10 to make, they only get paid $35 a month now and still make a healthy profit. And I want to, but what to do next? I want to cap the cost of insulin at $35 a month for every American who needs it. Everyone. People have talked about it, but finally we got it done and gave Medicare the power to negotiate lower prices on prescription drugs, just like the VA is able to do for veterans. That's not just saving seniors money, it's saving taxpayers money. We cut the federal deficit by $160 billion. Because Medicare will no longer have to pay those exorbitant prices to Big Pharma. This year, Medicare is negotiating lower prices for some of the costliest drugs on the market that treat everything from heart disease to arthritis. It's now time to go further and give Medicare the power to negotiate lower prices for 500 different drugs over the next decade. They're making a lot of money, guys. And they'll still be extremely profitable. Will not only save lives, it will save taxpayers another $200 billion. Starting next year, the same law caps total prescription drug costs for seniors on Medicare at $2,000 a year, even for expensive cancer drugs that cost $10,000, $12,000, $15,000. Now I want to cap prescription drug costs at $2,000 a year for everyone. Folks, I'm going to get in trouble for saying that, but if you want to get an Air Force One and fly to Toronto, Berlin, Moscow, well, even Moscow, probably. And bring your prescription with you, and I promise you I'll get it for you for 40% the cost you're paying now. Same company, same drug, same place. Folks, the Affordable Care Act, the old Obamacare, is still a very big deal. Over 100 million of you can no longer be denied health insurance because of pre-existing condition. Well, my predecessor, and many in this chamber, want to take this prescription drug away by repealing the Affordable Care Act. I'm not going to let that happen. We stopped you 50 times before, and we'll stop you again. In fact, I'm not only protecting it, I'm expanding it. The enacted tax credits of $800 per person per year reduce health care costs for millions of working families. That tax credit expires next year. I want to make that savings permanent. To state the obvious, women are more than half our population, but research on women's health has always been underfunded. That's why we're launching the first ever White House initiative on women's health research, led by Jill, doing an incredible job as First Lady. We'll pass my plan for $12 billion to transfer women's health research and benefit millions of lives all across America. I know the cost of housing is so important to you. If inflation keeps coming down, mortgage rates will come down as well, and the Fed acknowledges that. But I'm not waiting. I want to provide an annual tax credit that will give Americans $400 a month for the next 2 years as mortgage rates come down, to put toward their mortgages when they buy their first home, or trade up for a little more space.
Wow.
Just for 2 years.
It's an idea. It's a proposal. That's a lot, though. That's $400 a month. That is like the difference of $64,000 on the value of a property.
Also eliminating title insurance on federally backed mortgages. Wow. When you refinance your home, you can save $1,000 or more as a consequence.
At least.
For millions of renters, we're cracking down on big landlords who use antitrust law, who break antitrust laws by price fixing and driving up rents. We've cut red tape so builders can get federally financing, which is already helping build a record 1.7 million new housing units nationwide. Now pass and build and renovate 2 million affordable homes and bring those rents down. To remain the strongest economy in the world, we need to have the best education system in the world.
Building more will help bring rents down. Affordable housing doesn't always, though.
Give every child, a good start by providing access to preschool for 3 and 4 years old. You know, I think I pointed out last year, that children coming from broken homes where there's no books, they're not read to, not spoken to very often, start school, kindergarten, or first grade, having heard 1 million fewer words spoken. Well, studies show that children who go to preschool are nearly 50% more likely to finish high school, go on to earn a 2- and 4-year degree, no matter what their background is. I met a year and a half ago with the leaders of the Business Roundtable. They were mad that they were angry. I think, well, they were discussing why I wanted to spend money on education. I pointed out to them as vice president, I met with over 182 of those folks. Don't hold me to the exact number. And I asked them what they need most, the CEOs. And you've had the same experience on both sides of the aisle. They say a better educated workforce, right? So I looked at them and I say, I come from Delaware. DuPont used to be the 8th largest corporation in the world. And every new enterprise they bought, they educated the workforce to that enterprise. But none of you do that anymore. Why are you angry with me providing you the opportunity for the best educated workforce in the world? And they all looked at me and said, I think you're right. I want to expand high-quality tutoring and summer learning to see that every child learns to read by 3rd grade. I'm also connecting local businesses and high schools so students get hands-on experience and a path to a good-paying job, whether or not they go to college. And I want to make sure that college is more affordable. Let's continue increasing the Pell Grants to working and middle-class families and increase record investments in HBCUs and minority-serving institutions, including Hispanic institutions. When I was told I couldn't universally just change the way in which we dealt with student loans, I fixed 2 student loan programs that already existed to reduce the burden of student debt for nearly 4 million Americans, including nurses, firefighters, and others in public service. Like Keenan Jones, a public educator from Minnesota, who's here with us tonight. Keenan, where are you? Keenan, thank you. He's educated hundreds of students so they can go to college. Now he's able to help, after debt forgiveness, get his own daughter to college. And folks, look, such relief is good for the economy because folks are now able to buy a home, start a business, start a family. While we're at it, I want to give public school teachers a raise. And by the way, the first couple of years, we cut the deficit. Now, let me speak to the question of fundamental fairness for all Americans. I've been delivering real results in fiscally responsible ways. We've already cut the federal deficit. We've already cut the federal deficit over $1 trillion. I signed the bipartisan deal to cut another $1 trillion in the next decade. It's my goal to cut the federal deficit another $3 trillion by making big corporations and the very wealthy finally beginning to pay their fair share. Look, I'm a capitalist. If you want to make or can make a million or millions of bucks, that's great. Just pay your fair share in taxes. A fair tax code is how we invest things to make this country great. Healthcare, education, defense, and so much more. But here's the deal. The last administration enacted a $2 trillion tax cut, overwhelmingly benefit the top 1%, the very wealthy and the biggest corporations, and exploded the federal deficit. They added more to the national debt than any presidential term in American history. Check the numbers. Folks at home, does anybody really think the tax code is fair? Do you really think the wealthy and big corporations need another $2 trillion tax break? I sure don't. I'm going to keep fighting like hell to make it fair. Under my plan, nobody earning less than $400,000 a year will pay an additional penny in federal taxes. Nobody, not one penny. And they haven't yet. In fact, the child tax credit I passed during the pandemic cut taxes for millions of working families and cut child poverty in half. Restore that child tax credit. No child should go hungry in this country. The way to make the tax code fair is to make big corporations and the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share. Remember in 2020, 55 of the biggest companies in America made $40 billion and paid zero in federal income tax. Zero. Not anymore. Thanks to the law I wrote and we signed, big companies have to pay a minimum of 15%. But that's still less than working people pay in federal taxes. It's time to raise corporate minimum tax to at least 21%. So every big corporation finally begins to pay their fair share. I also want to end tax breaks for big pharma, big oil, private jets, massive executive pay when it's only supposed to be $1 million that could be deducted. They can pay them $20 million if they want, but deduct $1 million. End it now. You know, there are 1,000 billionaires in America. You know what the average federal tax is for those billionaires? No. They're making great sacrifices, 8.2%. That's far less than the vast majority of Americans pay. No billionaire should pay a lower federal tax rate than a teacher, a sanitation worker, or a nurse. I propose a minimum tax for billionaires of 25%, just 25%. You know what that would raise? That would raise $500 billion over the next 10 years. And imagine what that could do for America. Imagine a future with affordable child care. Millions of families can get what they need to go to work to help grow the economy. Imagine a future with paid leave, because no one should have to choose between working and taking care of their sick family member. Imagine the future of home care and elder care, and people living with disabilities so they can stay in their homes and family caregivers can finally get the pay they deserve. Tonight, let's all agree once again to stand up for seniors. Many of my friends on the other side of the aisle want to put Social Security on the chopping block. If anyone here tries to cut Social Security, Medicare, or raise the retirement age, I will stop you.
The Washington Post disagrees with the 8.2% average tax for billionaires, by the way. They say if you checked Treasury departments, you would see the top 1% pay in excess of 20%, 30% for all federal taxes.
It's not fair. We have two ways to go. Republicans can cut Social Security and give more tax breaks to the wealthy. That's the proposal. Oh no, you guys don't want another $2 trillion tax cut? I kind of thought that's what your plan was. Well, that's good to hear. You're not going to cut another $2 trillion for the super wealthy. That's good to hear. I'll protect and strengthen Social Security and make the wealthy pay their fair share. Look, too many corporations raise prices to pad their profits, charging more and more for less and less. That's why we're cracking down on corporations that engage in price gouging and deceptive pricing, from food to healthcare to housing. In fact, the snack companies think you won't notice if they change the size of the bag and put a hell of a lot fewer, same size bag, put fewer chips in it. No, I'm not joking. It's called shrinkflation. Pass Bobby Casey's bill and stop this. I really mean it.
Do you know a Heineken beer, instead of being 12 ounces, is now 11.2? Those stinkers. Corona is still 12 ounces.
You probably all saw that commercial on Snickers bars. You get charged the same amount, and you got about, 10% fewer Snickers in it. Look, I'm also getting rid of junk fees. Those hidden fees at the end of your bill that are there without your knowledge. My administration announced we're cutting credit card late fees from $32 to $8. Banks and credit card companies are allowed to charge what it costs them to instigate the collection. And that's more a hell of a lot like $8 and 30-some dollars. They don't like it. Credit card companies don't like it. But I'm saving American families $20 billion a year with all the junk fees I'm eliminating. Folks at home, that's why the banks are so mad. It's $20 billion in profit. I'm not stopping there. My administration has proposed rules to make cable, travel, utilities, and online ticket sellers tell you the total price up front, so there are no surprises. It matters. It matters. And so does this. In November, my team began serious negotiation with a bipartisan group of senators. The result was a bipartisan bill with the toughest set of border security reforms we've ever seen. Oh, you don't think so? Oh, you don't like that bill, huh? That conservatives got together and said it was a good bill? I'll be darned. That's amazing. That bipartisan bill would hire 1,500 more security agents and officers, 100 more immigration judges to help tackle the backload of 2 million cases, 4,300 more asylum officers, and new policies so they can resolve cases in 6 months instead of 6 years now. What are you against? 100 more high-tech drug detection machines to significantly increase the ability to screen and stop vehicles smuggling fentanyl into America. That's killing thousands of children. This bill would save lives and bring order to the border. It will also give me and any new president new emergency authority to temporarily shut down the border when the number of migrants at the border is overwhelming. The Border Patrol Union has endorsed this bill. The Federal Chamber of Commerce is, yeah. You're saying low. Look at the facts. I know you know how to read. I believe that given the opportunity for a majority in the House and Senate would endorse the bill as well, a majority right now. But unfortunately, politics has derailed this bill so far. I'm told my predecessor called members of Congress in the Senate to demand they block the bill. He feels political win, he viewed it as a political win for me and a political loser for him. It's not about him, it's not about me. I'd be a winner, not really. Lincoln Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. That's right. But how many of the thousands of people being killed by illegals? To her parents, I say, my heart goes out to you, having lost children myself. I understand. But look, if we change the dynamic at the border, people pay these smugglers $8,000 to get across the border because they know if they get by and let into the country, it's 6 to 8 years before they have a hearing. And it's worth taking the chance of the $8,000. But if it's only 6 weeks, the idea is it's highly unlikely that people will pay that money and come all that way knowing that they'll be able to be kicked out quickly. Folks, I would respectfully suggest my Republican friends owe it to the American people, get this bill done. We need to act now.
Biden was well prepared there. Marjorie Taylor Greene shouted out about Lincoln Riley being killed, and he pulls out a button that he brought specifically for her to acknowledge that.
Politics. And pressuring members of Congress to block the bill, join me in telling the Congress to pass it. We can do it together. But that's what he apparently here's what he will not do. I will not demonize immigrants saying they are poison in the blood of our country. I will not separate families. I will not.
Oh, some people are saying Marjorie Taylor Greene gave him that button. Okay, so he's acknowledging that. He got it.
I introduced a comprehensive bill to fix our immigration system.
Smart.
Good for her. Look at it. It has all these and more. Secure the border. Provide a pathway to citizenship for dreamers. And so much more. But unlike my predecessor, I know who we are as Americans. We're the only nation in the world with a heart and soul that draws from old and new. Home to Native Americans, and ancestors have been here for thousands of years. Home to people of from every place on earth. They came freely. Some came in chains. Some came when famine struck, like my ancestral family in Ireland. Some to flee persecution, to chase dreams that are impossible anywhere but here in America. That's America. And we all come from somewhere. But we're all Americans. Look, folks, we have a simple choice. We can fight about fixing the border, or we can fix it. I'm ready to fix it. Send me the border bill now. A transformational moment in history happened 59 years ago today in Selma, Alabama. Hundreds of foot soldiers for justice marched across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, named after the Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan, to claim their fundamental right to vote. They were beaten, they were bloody, and left for dead. Our late friend and former colleague, John Lewis, was on that march. We miss him. Joining us tonight
Here's what that button looked like, by the way. It's on ehack.com.
Including Betty Mae Fikes, known as the voice of Selma.
Full summary.
The daughter of gospel singers and preachers. She sang songs of prayer and protest on that bloody Sunday to help shake the nation's conscience. 5 months later, the Voting Rights Act passed and was signed into law. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But 59 years later, there are forces taking us back in time. Voter suppression, election subversion, unlimited dark money, Extreme gerrymandering. John Lewis was a great friend to many of us here. But if you truly want to honor him and all the heroes who marched with him, then it's time to do more than talk. Pass the Freedom to Vote Act, the John Lewis Voting Right Act. And stop denying another core value of America, our diversity across American life. Banning books, it's wrong. Instead of erasing history, let's make history. I want to protect fundamental rights. Pass the Equality Act. And my message to transgender Americans, I have your back. Pass the PRO Act for workers' rights. Raise the federal minimum wage, because every worker has a right to a decent living more than $7 an hour. We're also making history by confronting the climate crisis, not denying it. I don't think any of you think there's no longer a climate crisis. At least I hope you don't. I'm taking the most significant action ever on climate in the history of the world. I'm cutting our carbon emissions in half by 2030, creating tens of thousands of clean energy jobs, like the IBEW work is building and installing 500,000 electric vehicle charging stations. Conserving 30% of America's lands and waters by 2030. And taking action on environmental justice, fence-line communities smothered by the legacy of pollution. And pattern after the Peace Corps and AmeriCorps, I launched the Climate Corps to put 20,000 young people to work in the forefront of our clean energy future. I'll triple that number in a decade. To state the obvious, all Americans deserve the freedom to be safe. And America is safer today than when I took office. Year before I took office, murder rates went up 30%. 30% they went up.
Who's that?
The biggest increase in history. It was then, through my American Rescue Plan, which every American voted against, I might add, we made the largest investment in public safety ever.
That guy just kind of walked himself out.
Saw the sharpest decrease in history. Violent crime fell to one of its lowest levels in more than 50 years. But we have more to do. We have to help cities invest in more community police officers, more mental health workers, more community violence intervention. Give communities the tool to crack down on gun crime, retail crime, and carjacking. Keep building trust, as I've been doing by taking executive action on police reform and calling for it to be the law of the land. Directing my cabinet to review the federal classification of marijuana and expunging thousands of convictions for the mere possession, because no one should be jailed for simply using or have it on their record. Take on crimes of domestic violence. I'm ramping up the federal enforcement of the Violence Against Women Act that I proudly wrote when I was a senator, so we can finally end the scourge against women in America. There are other kinds of violence I want to stop. With us tonight is Jasmine, whose 9-year-old sister Jackie was murdered with 21 classmates and teachers in elementary school in Uvalde, Texas.
Jeez.
Very soon after that happened, Jill and I went to Uvalde for a couple of days. We spent hours and hours with each of the families. We heard their message, so everyone in this room, in this chamber, could hear the same message. The constant refrain, and I was there for hours meeting with every family. They said, do something. Do something. Well, I did do something by establishing the first ever Office of Gun Violence Prevention in the White House, that the Vice President is leading the charge. Thank you for doing it. Meanwhile, Meanwhile, my predecessor told the NRA he's proud he did nothing on guns when he was president. Oh. After another shooting in Iowa recently, he said, when asked what to do about it, he said, just get over it. There's his quote, just get over it. I say, stop it. Stop it, stop it, stop it. I'm proud we beat the NRA when I signed the most significant gun safety law in nearly 30 years because of this Congress. We now must beat the NRA again. I'm demanding a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Pass universal background checks. None of this. None of this. I taught the Second Amendment for 12 years. None of this violates the Second Amendment or vilifies responsible gun owners. You know, as we manage challenges at home, we're also managing crises abroad, including in the Middle East. I know the last 5 months have been gut-wrenching for so many people, for the Israeli people, for the Palestinian people, and so many here in America. This crisis began on October 7th with a massacre by a terrorist group called Hamas, as you all know. 1,200 innocent people, women and girls, men and boys, slaughtered after enduring sexual violence. The deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust, and 250 hostages taken. Here in this chamber tonight are families whose loved ones are still being held by Hamas. I pledge to all the families that we will not rest until we bring every one of your loved ones home. We also
Trump did say a quote on that after that shooting. It's just horrible, so surprising to see it here, but we have to get over it. We have to move forward.
Around the clock to bring home Evan and Paul, Americans being unjustly detained by the Russians and others around the world. Israel has the right to go after Hamas. Hamas ended this conflict by releasing hostages, laying down arms, could end it by releasing the hostages, laying down arms, and surrendering those responsible for October 7th. But Israel has Israel has a added burden because Hamas hides and operates among the civilian population like cowards, under hospitals, daycare centers, and all the like. Israel also has a fundamental responsibility, though, to protect innocent civilians in Gaza. This war has taken a greater toll on innocent civilians than all previous wars in Gaza combined. More than 30,000 Palestinians have been killed, most of whom are not Hamas. Thousands and thousands of innocent women and children, girls and boys, also orphaned. Nearly 2 million more Palestinians under bombardment or displacement. Homes destroyed, neighborhoods in rubble, cities in ruin. Families without food, water, medicine. It's heartbreaking. I've been working nonstop to establish an immediate ceasefire that would last for 6 weeks to get all the prisoners released, all the hostages released, to get the hostages home and ease the intolerable and humanitarian crisis and build toward an enduring, something more enduring. The United States has been leading international efforts to get more humanitarian assistance to Gaza. Tonight, I'm directing the U.S. military to lead an emergency mission to establish a temporary pier in the Mediterranean on the coast of Gaza that can receive large shipments carrying food, water, medicine, and temporary shelters. No U.S. boots will be on the ground. A temporary pier will enable a massive increase in the amount of humanitarian assistance getting into Gaza every day. And Israel must do its part. Israel must allow more aid into Gaza to ensure humanitarian workers aren't caught in the crossfire. And they're announcing they're going to have a crossing in northern Gaza. To the leadership of Israel, I say this. Humanitarian assistance cannot be a secondary consideration or a bargaining chip. Protecting and saving innocent lives has to be a priority. As we look to the future, the only real solution to the situation is a two-state solution over time.
Trump just posted, "Don't shake people's hands going out. He keeps coughing into his right hand." Trump's a germaphobe.
I'm a supporter of Israel. My entire career, no one has a stronger record with Israel than I do. I challenge any of you here. I'm the only American president of Israel in wartime. But there is no other path that guarantees Israel's security and democracy. There is no other path that guarantees Palestinians can live in peace with peace and dignity. And there's no other path that guarantees peace between Israel and all of its neighbors, including Saudi Arabia, with whom I'm talking. Creating stability in the Middle East also means containing the threat posed by Iran. That's why I built a coalition of more than a dozen countries to defend international shipping and freedom of navigation in the Red Sea. I've ordered strikes to degrade the Houthi capability and defend U.S. forces in the region. As Commander-in-Chief, I will not hesitate to direct further measures to protect our people and our military personnel. For years, I've heard many of my Republican and Democratic friends say that China is on the rise and America's falling behind. They've got it backwards. I've been saying it for over 4 years, even when I wasn't president. America's rising. We have the best economy in the world. And since I've come to office, our GDP is up, our trade deficit with China is down to the lowest point in over a decade. And we're standing up against China's unfair economic practices. We're standing up for peace and stability across the Taiwan Straits. I've revitalized our partnership and alliance in the Pacific. India, Australia, Japan, South Korea, Pacific Islands. I've made sure that the most advanced American technologies can't be used in China, not allowing to trade them there. Frankly, for all this tough talk on China, it never occurred to my predecessor to do any of that.
That is true, by the way. Lowest trade deficit in a decade.
And we're in a stronger position to win the conflict of the 21st century against China than anyone else, for that matter, than any time as well. Here at home, I've signed over 400 bipartisan bills. There's more to pass my unity agenda. Strengthen penalties on fentanyl trafficking. You don't want to do that, huh? Pass bipartisan privacy legislation to protect our children online. Harness the promise of AI to protect us from peril. Ban AI voice impersonations and more. And keep our truly sacred obligation to train and equip those we send into harm's way and care for them and their families when they come home and when they don't. That's why the song Support and Help of Dennis and the VA, I signed the PACT Act. One of the most significant laws ever, helping millions of veterans exposed to toxins who now are battling more than 100 different cancers. Many of them don't come home, but we owe them and their families support. We owe it to ourselves to keep supporting our new health research agency called ARPA-H, and remind us that we can do big things like end cancer as we know it, and we will. Let me close with this. Yeah. I know you don't want to hear any more, Lindsay, but I got to say a few more things. I know it may not look like it, but I've been around a while. When you get to be my age, certain things become clearer than ever. I know the American story. Again and again, I've seen the contest between competing forces in the battle for the soul of our nation. Between those who want to pull America back to the past and those who want to move America into the future. My lifetime has taught me to embrace freedom and democracy, a future based on core values that have defined America: honesty, decency, dignity, equality, to respect everyone, to give everyone a fair shot, to give hate no safe harbor. Now, other people my age see it differently. The American story of resentment, revenge, and retribution, that's not me. I was born amid World War II, when America stood for the freedom of the world. I grew up in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and Claymont, Delaware, among working-class people who built this country. I watched in horror as two of my heroes, like many of you did, Dr. King and Bobby Kennedy, were assassinated. And their legacies inspired me to pursue a career in service. I left the law firm and became a public defender because my city of Wilmington was the only city in America occupied by the National Guard after Dr. King was assassinated because of the riots. And I became a county councilman almost by accident. I got elected to the United States Senate when I had no intention of running at age 29. Then vice president, or our first black president. Now president to the first women vice president. In my career, I've been told I was too young. By the way, they didn't let me on the Senate elevators for votes sometimes. Not a joke.
That's a good way to end it.
And I've been told I'm too old. Whether young or old, I've always known what endures. I've known our North Star. The very idea of America is that we're all created equal and deserves to be treated equally throughout our lives. We've never fully lived up to that idea, but we've never walked away from it either. And I won't walk away from it now. I'm optimistic. I really am. I'm optimistic, Nancy. My fellow Americans, the issue facing our nation isn't how old we are. It's how old are our ideas. Hate, anger, revenge, retribution are the oldest of ideas. But you can't lead America with ancient ideas that only take us back. You lead America, the land of possibilities. You need a vision for the future and what can and should be done. Tonight you've heard mine. I see a future where defending democracy, you don't diminish it. I see a future where we restore the right to choose and protect our freedoms, not take them away. I see a future where the middle class finally has a fair shot and the wealthy have to pay their fair share in taxes. I see a future where we save the planet from the climate crisis and our country from gun violence. Above all, I see a future for all Americans. I see a country for all Americans. And I will always be president for all Americans because I believe in America. I believe in you, the American people. You're the reason we've never been more optimistic about our future than I am now. So let's build the future together. Let's remember who we are. We are the United States of America. And there is nothing beyond our capacity when we act together. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Now, after this, there is the Tucker Carlson live sort of breakdown. We're probably going to cover that if you want to see that. I'll also do a summary of both of these, so we can do that in just a moment. Keep in mind, we've got an event in Vegas, June 21st to June 23rd. We're raising the ticket prices this Friday at 1 p.m. That's tomorrow, as we announce a new speaker. It's going to be real estate, big deal. Learn how we do real estate, and then we'll have speakers as well in various different industries, so that'll be great. That was the State of the Union. Right now, we are waiting to see if a lot of people are looking for Tucker to start his live response event. So if you want to see that, we can take a peek at that. We are expecting this to begin momentarily, given that Tucker's been sort of teasing this event coming, and we'll cover that with commentary. Just waiting for that to begin. And then, of course, we'll do a recap of both the State of the Union, Joe Biden, and Tucker Carlson's response. So what did you all think about that? I mean, obviously, he had plenty of an opportunity to practice the speech, but you have to give him credit. That was, I got through it. He got through it. Went pretty decently. I think we did get bingo. In case you didn't see that yet, we did get bingo. I didn't see get Republicans to work with us. I didn't see that quote specifically, but that's almost implied. And we otherwise did get bingo, though, so kind of nice to see that. Just waiting now for audio from Tucker's event, and then we'll cover that once that actually starts. Let me just test quickly here to make sure we have audio. I'm pretty sure we do. Pretty good here. Yeah. There we go. All right, cool. Let's see what kind of coverage we're getting here in the meantime.
Working in terms of the numbers by the prior administration. Then he says, in November, we came forward with this idea legislatively to fix all of this. Well, that's 3 years in to his administration. He talked about the fentanyl problem, all of these issues, but really have not been addressed in force until very recently when they started showing up in polling as being very problematic. It's interesting. I think that he didn't mention any executive orders that he could do on that issue with regard to remain in Mexico or catch and release, but he did say that he would use executive orders in a couple of other aspects. No talk about taking on the cartel. Oh, against police reform. That's where he said he would use executive orders when it came to police reform. Did mention Lincoln Riley. Exchange back and forth with.
Yeah, he did hold that button up from Lincoln Riley. That was a button, want to clarify, that was given to him by Marjorie Taylor Greene. So that was an interesting move. She got that up on the podium. So good for her. Her button strategy worked. Waiting here. I've got notes, by the way. I took notes of the event over at ehack.com. And what I did as well is I broke down some of the fact checks, such as the United States goods trade deficit with China. We are actually at the lowest trade deficit with China in 10 years. That was true. Joe Manchin did talk about the border bill not passing as being one of the reasons why he didn't want to run for Senate again. In other words, he felt that the GOP sort of blocking of the border bill was so disgraceful that he didn't even want to be part of Congress at all anymore. It is true that there were at least a lot of people who were commenting that Donald Trump was to blame for the death of the border bill. Obviously, that is highly debated, how much involvement Donald Trump had in that, but it does also make logical sense that Donald Trump would potentially see success on the border as weakening his ability to slam Joe Biden. So that doesn't surprise me. Okay, getting some more. We're waiting for some more updates here. Let's see here. Okay. All right. So waiting for the Tucker Carlson portion to begin. And as we wait for that, we'll be on standby. We can also, let's see here. Make sure that's good. Yeah, nope. Nothing yet from the Tucker stream, so we're waiting for that again to begin. Okay, good. So with that, we can do a summary soon, but I'd rather do the summary after. All right, it looks like they're doing a 39-second countdown clock now to the Tucker Carlson stream. Okay. Okay, waiting for that. Let's see here. That should be beginning momentarily. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Make sure we got this up here. 4 seconds, it says.
They told you that
All right, he's got an intro here. Hold on.
torching Wendy's in 2020 were mostly peaceful. They said that masks worked. They told you the vax was safe. They tried to convince you that Russia blew up its own pipeline. The corporate media lied too much, and it killed them. We're driving to see join us on.
Believe me when I tell you.
Wait. I should be boycotting Bud Light.
Fantastic job.
Thank you. That was amazing.
So we're going to hear
Tucker's live response to the State of the Union address.
We're going to hear Tucker's live response in just a moment. I'm working on getting a better audio source, but we'll use this for now.
Heritage.org/join.
Okay.
Free speech is bigger than any one person or any one organization. Societies are defined by what they will not permit. What we're watching is the total inversion of virtue. Good evening and welcome to the Tucker Carlson Network live. Well, that was quite an experience watching that. You know, you think of Joe Biden as a doddering old man, a guy who can't remember when his son died or when he served as vice president. Of course, that's exactly who he is, and it's on display every day. But Joe Biden is also a cruel and vicious demagogue, a man who has no problem at all denouncing his fellow Americans or putting his political opponents in prison as he has done. And that was all on display tonight. That was possibly the darkest, most un-American speech ever given by an American president.
Wow.
In fact, it wasn't a speech, it was a rant, entirely lacking in decency or generosity to his fellow Americans. In Joe Biden's very first sentence, he compared Donald Trump to Adolf Hitler. He did not describe Trump as the other party's candidate, which he is, a political opponent in a country that's had peaceful elections for 250
There we go.
years. No. According to Joe Biden, Donald Trump is Adolf Hitler.
For paragraphs and paragraphs, Biden quickly explained that actually his top priority has nothing to do with America. His top priority is sending billions more to Ukraine.
You can hear that, right?
A foreign war in Eastern Europe, a war across
Good.
the world that has nothing to do with the United States. That the United States is not obligated by any treaty
Too
to
low?
join. Of course, Ukraine is not a member of NATO. A war that can only hurt this country and already has hurt it in grave and permanent ways. The invasion of Ukraine is the most important thing to Joe Biden. Not ending the invasion of our own country by drug cartels, which control huge swaths of the southern United States at this point. Not our degrading economy that you experience every day. Not our collapsing schools, schools where kids can't read at all. Not the 100,000 fentanyl deaths every year. Not the declining life expectancy that is obvious if you look around. Collapsing public health, an epidemic of suicide and murder, things that hurt Americans. Ghost armies of drug addicts living on the streets. Right outside the chamber where the speech was given tonight. None of that matters. Biden's top priority is aid for Ukraine. It was deranged. You watch this, you thought, this is insane. Does anyone in the room think it's insane? They must. Here's how the Republican Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson of Louisiana, newly elected, the man who leads Republicans, in fact, the top elected Republican in the United States of America. Here's how he responded as Joe Biden told the country that the invasion of Ukraine is his top priority. Watch this.
Overseas, Putin of Russia is on the march, invading Ukraine and sowing chaos throughout Europe and beyond. If anybody in this room thinks Putin will stop at Ukraine, I assure you he will not. But Ukraine can stop Putin. Ukraine can stop Putin if we stand with Ukraine and provide the weapons that needs to defend itself. My message to President Putin, who I've known for a long time, is simple. We will not walk away. We will not bow down. I will not bow down.
This is crazy talk. There's no explanation of what the goal is here. There's lie after lie. Ukraine can stop Russia. No, it can't. This has gone on for over 2 years. NATO is stronger than ever. No, it's not. NATO is on its way to collapse, as is the economy of Western Europe. For not one sentence did Joe Biden explain what the goal of this exercise is, when we'll know we've won, and what the future should look like. Again, it was crazy talk. And yet, Mike Johnson, the Republican Speaker of the House, nodded gravely. Oh, of course, he is completely on board with Joe Biden on this Biden's signature issue. And that's not a guess. As of this afternoon, Mike Johnson is secretly supporting Biden's agenda, sending another $60 billion to the oligarchs in Ukraine. Johnson plans to let Democrats onto the floor of the House to vote for this. This is a stealthy procedural move designed to shield him and other Republicans from criticism. Oh, the Democrats did it. But that's exactly what it is. He's the Speaker of the House. He could stop it, but he won't, because he's on board. So why is he on board? Is Mike Johnson representing his own voters as he backs Joe Biden's signature agenda item, a war against Russia? No, he's not. Republican voters in Louisiana are not for this. Republican voters nationally are not for this. They hate this. It has nothing to do with them. And it's insulting. As their country is invaded, we send billions to prevent the invasion of another country that we have nothing to do with? But the Uniparty demands this, so Mike Johnson is doing it. And so at some point you ask, well, why are they demanding this, actually? Why is war with Russia the most important thing? If you look at the numbers or a map, it wouldn't be obvious that Russia would be America's main enemy. There are other candidates. Could it be because Russia is the largest white Christian country in the world? Maybe. Could it be because they're getting rich from war? Well, that's certainly true. And there may be other reasons as well. We could guess. But we don't need to, because we know that it's happening, and we know that war against Russia is not the only war we're going to be engaged in, and not the only one that Biden
Quick
announced.
note, Johnson was
Biden
promised
also told
by
the country that
Democrat...
we're going to have boots on the ground in Gaza. Really? Or admitted it, in fact.
He was promised by Democratic leadership that Democrats would protect him if he brought the bill to the floor so that he doesn't get kicked out too. That's what Tucker's referring to.
What the point of this is, when we'll know we've won? What's the objective here? American lives will be at risk. But of course, no one's told you.
Also, I just want to criticize very obviously extremely one-sided here commentary from Tucker Carlson.
The United States, a war that can only hurt us and already is hurting us. And we're doing this not because it helps us, but because foreign interests are demanding that we do it. America is being used, as we so often have been. And the result of all of this is that the world is now closer to nuclear war at this moment than at any time in history, closer than it was during the Cuban Missile Crisis. We have no idea where this is going. You never do once people start to die, once wars begin. No PowerPoint can tell you, no speech to a joint session can tell you where this is going. It's dynamic. It's completely unpredictable. And that's why wise people pause before accelerating. But there are no wise people in charge in either party, on either side. Do you think Tony Blinken, the Secretary of State, has any clue what will happen in a war with Russia? Of course not. You can't say where this is going. This is so reckless that it qualifies as suicidal.
He's really tied up on Ukraine, really just want to mention, he suggests here Ukraine can't stop Russia. Let's be very clear, Russia's stuck in eastern Ukraine. Either they don't want to go further or they can't go further. I don't know.
Does that actually matter to people who live here, like crime or inflation or fentanyl or the foreign army now occupying our country? Joe Biden doesn't care. There was no upside for you in any of the things that he said. I'm going to give you something you want very badly.
He did talk about trying to fix the border and screening for fentanyl at the border. He did at least talk about
The
it.
Supreme Court majority wrote the following, and with all due respect, justices, women are not without electoral power. Electoral or political power. You're about to realize just how much you were right about that. Clearly. Those bragging about overturning Roe v. Wade have no clue about the power of women. But they found out when reproductive freedom was on the ballot. We won in 2022 and 2020, and we'll win again in 2024.
Oh, well, you can't have a safe, clean country or groceries you can afford or schools that will educate your children, but you can't have abortion. You can have a lot more abortion. How's about some more abortion for you? That'll make you happy and free. You can have all the abortions you want. But of course, you already could have all the abortions you want. Abortion is one thing, maybe the one thing that's pretty easy to get in this country. Compare getting an abortion to getting an affordable new roof or a knee replacement. No, abortion is everywhere. It's very easy to get. And it's easy to get because the government wants it to be, of course, unlike an affordable new roof. But what's interesting is why, of all the services government could guarantee, why abortion at a time when fertility rates of actual Americans are below replacement? Biden and his party are encouraging Americans to have fewer children. Now, if you have a handheld calculator, do the math on that. That's the path to extinction. Why would they want that? You're the leader of a country. Why would you want your people to have fewer children? You should ponder that. But let's say you're too old to have an abortion. Let's say it doesn't actually apply to you, this wonderful freedom that will make you happy. What can you do to guarantee that you will have no descendants? Well, you can always castrate your children and end your lineage. No more grandchildren. And Joe Biden wants to help.
I want to protect fundamental rights. Pass the Equality Act. And my message to transgender Americans is, I have your back.
Oh, trans children, I have your back. That's not creepy. But that's what he's offering. Abortion, war, castration of children.
He didn't say trans children.
Better roads and schools, cheaper electricity and food. No, abortion and war. Who wants all that? I mean, some tiny percentage of CNN contributors think those are the most important things. But most people would rather have cheaper electricity, cheaper food, better roads. And so what this means is that underneath all of the talk is a dire political reality. Joe Biden can't win. In a fair election, Joe Biden will lose in November. He cannot win. That's the thing that nobody in any media wants to say out loud. In a fair election, Joe Biden cannot win. So they're saying the opposite. Here, for example, is the pregame analysis over at MSNBC, which we watched while waiting for Biden to dodder up to the stage, waiting for the amphetamines to take effect. And keep in mind, as you watch this analysis, these are supposedly the smart kids. These are the smart kids, the ones with complicated glasses. These are the ones the White House looks to for guidance. And here's their analysis of Joe Biden's skills. Watch this.
This seems like a weirdly counterintuitive hot take, even though it's the most obvious thing you could say, which is that Joe Biden is good at politics.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
Like, Joe Biden is good at politics. He's very good at politics. Like, the man really does know what he's doing, and you really see it in those sort of situations.
Joe Biden is just really good at politics. It's the one thing he's really good at. Really? If Joe Biden is so good at politics, why is he losing to Donald Trump, who the rest of us were assured was a retarded racist, who no normal person would vote for? But now Joe Biden is getting stomped by Donald Trump, but he's also at the same time good at politics? Right. Chris Hayes, ladies and gentlemen, the most famous lesbian in television. So, again, they can't win. but they're not giving up. So what does that tell you? Well, they're going to steal the election. And we know they're going to steal the election because they're now saying so out loud. Here is the Attorney General of the United States, the chief law enforcement officer of this country in Selma, Alabama, just the other day. Listen to this.
The right to vote is still under attack. And that is why the Justice Department is fighting back. That is why one of the first things I did when I came into office was to double the size of the voting section of the Civil Rights Division. That is why we are challenging efforts by states and jurisdictions to implement discriminatory, burdensome, and unnecessary restrictions on access to the ballot, including those related to mail-in voting, the use of drop boxes, and voter ID requirements. That is why we are working to block the adoption of discriminatory redistricting plans that dilute the vote of black voters and other voters of color.
Did you catch that? Of course, you're a racist. That's always the takeaway. But consider the details of what the Attorney General of the United States just said.
No voter ID thing.
Mail-in balloting, drop boxes, voter ID requirements. The chief law enforcement officer of the United States government is telling you that it's immoral, in fact racist, in fact illegal, to ask people for their IDs when they vote to verify they are who they say they are. What is that? Well, no one ever talks about this, but the justification for it is that somehow people of color, black people, don't have state-issued IDs. Somehow they're living in a country where you can do virtually nothing without proving your identity with a government-issued ID without government-issued IDs. So they can't fly on planes, they can't have checking accounts, they can't have any interaction with the government, state, local, or federal. They can't stay in hotels. They can't have credit cards. Because someone without a state-issued ID can't do any of those things. But what's so interesting is these same people, very much including the Attorney General and the administration he serves, is working to eliminate cash, to make this a cashless society. Have you been to a stadium event recently?
See, this is a good argument from Tucker.
To have a credit card. And in order to get a credit card, you need a state-issued ID. And somehow that's not racist, but it is racist to ask people to prove their identity when they choose the next president of the United States. So that doesn't make any sense at all. That's a lie. It's an easily provable lie. And anyone telling that lie is advocating for mass voter fraud, which the Attorney General is. There's no other way to read it. So you should know that. You live in a country where the Attorney General is abetting, in fact, calling for voter fraud. And that's the only chance they have to get their guy reelected. Well, for a cooler, more measured take, we suspect, on what we just saw, we are grateful to go to Victor Davis Hanson, who's a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution, and he joins us now. Professor, thank you very much for coming on. I want to start right at the outset, and I save this sound for your analysis, because I think it'll be smarter than mine, of the signature moment of the night, which was Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia confronting Joe Biden as he spoke, and here's what happened next.
I'd be a winner, not really. Lincoln Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. That's right. But how many of the thousands of people being killed by illegals? To her parents, I say, my heart goes out to you, having lost children myself. I understand.
So what did you make of that? What does that mean, do you think?
Well, I've never seen, in general, an angrier speech. I mean, I
Yes.
think the left's happy because he didn't stumble, but he only is incoherent when he's full of venom and he's angry. Get off
Yes.
my... This was Phantom of the Opera #2, and I've never seen a president interact and yell at the opposition.
I didn't agree with this. I didn't think it was that bad.
Having a dialogue, an invective against the Supreme Court justices in the chamber. And so he's a very angry guy, and you were absolutely right, he's a demagogue. And then
This makes me respect this guy less. Like, just give me some facts, bro.
talked about the deficit and the debt. He's on schedule, if he were to be reelected, to run up $15 trillion. We're borrowing, I should say, or printing $1 trillion every 100 days under him. We've never seen anything like it, $7 trillion. And yet he says he's lowered the debt or deficit. Same thing about the border. I mean, I know that Mitch McConnell made a fatal blunder by even negotiating with these guys, and that was the whole purpose of the Democratic negotiation, was this speech where they could say, well, they didn't sign on, but there's no need for laws, there's no need for more money. All Joe Biden had to do was just keep the policies in place. He had 100 executive orders to overturn everything. He let in almost 10 million people by design. He wanted to change the demographic. He wanted voters under, mail-in and early voting protocols. And yet to stand there and just say that he's for the border closing was just a complete lie. I think it got people, I don't think it's going to go over. I think it was a mean old man saying, get off my grass, and I'm going to give you free stuff and print more money and then tell you that it's the rich that are the problem. I think the nadir, though, Tucker, was not just the Marjorie Taylor Greene exchange, but when he said that he's getting tired of people not paying their income taxes when his son is now facing several felony counts for tax avoidance, and he's got a lot of cash that he's never reported. And as soon as he's out of office, if there's any justice in the world, he'll face the same exposure as Hunter. So I know that the left will say, well, he didn't stumble, and he was vigorous, and he was muscular, but it was a muscularity and a vigor that was frightening, because it was exactly like he did in that other speech about the semi-fascist and ultra-MAGA.
Yes.
And the idea that buffoonish display in the rotunda for a few minutes was a insurrection and is the greatest threat to America since the Civil War. I think he forgot December 7th and World War II and World War I, but my God, he lives in an alternate universe. And
well, I mean, it was way more than a few minutes in the rotunda. Let's also be clear about that. These hyperboles are ridiculous, and they do make me lose respect for this guy.
His staff wrote it. They're not stupid. And they told easily provable lies, not just a few, as politicians invariably do, but big ones. The Republicans are responsible for the spending and the border, et cetera, et cetera. Why do they do that? Does that work? If you repeat a lie often enough, does it become real? Like, what's the thinking there, do you think?
I think they think that lying on the border and lying on the budget and lying about abortion and lying about all these things will be resonated because they have confidence in the media. They feel they control social media, traditional media, new media, entertainment, and this will just reverberate and as what you see every night on network news or MSNBC. But I don't think it's going to work because people have heard it before, and they look at the reality that the staples that make life possible, fuel and food and shelter, have gone up 30%, and he doesn't care. And when they look at the border, it's 8 to 10 million people who are swarming into the United States, and he doesn't care. And when you look at abroad, he kept talking about Ukraine, Ukraine, Ukraine. You want to think, okay, there's been 4 administrations. When did Putin go in? He didn't go in during Donald Trump, but he went in during Bush, and he went in Obama, and he went in yours. And you talk really tough on Ukraine, but you were the one that fled in disgrace from Afghanistan. You told the country you wouldn't react if it was a minor invasion of Ukraine. You talk about giving them aid. He froze $100 million. And
those are better hits. He's landing those.
Donald Trump was there. So the world fell apart when he came on the scene. He knows that. I think they're going to be desperate. I think you're absolutely right about what the contours of the next election are going to be. It's going to be Donald Trump is January 6th, beat that dead horse. It's going to be abortion. It's going to be Donald Trump lawfare. And then it's going to be confidence in 70% of the electorate not voting in person on election day. And that's all they have. Every single issue, people are sick of him. And but I do have some confidence. I'm a little bit more optimistic when you look at that face and you see that reptilian grin and an anger, and he screams for emphasis. He doesn't change his intonation or use his hands or try to smile. It's just very angry and full of venom, as if all of the veneer of self-control of an earlier Joe Biden is gone now, and it's the real Joe Biden coming out. We've seen it before, and It's kind of frightening. I've never seen an angrier speech, State of the Union, than that. Never.
I don't think there's ever been one. If last question, if you were going to guess what happens as this unfolds, because there's no better big picture assessor than you, is Biden going to make it to November? Is there any chance he wins? I mean, what would you guess if you had to in March? Now, what happens?
I think tonight is what we saw with the first debate with Donald Trump. I think he was late tonight. I think they just have a 2-day week. They rest him, and then for these iconic occasions, he looks angry, and they consider that normal. But campaigning, he's not going to be able to campaign, and I think that what we saw after the Robert Hur report, that crazy press conference, is going to be often, and I think they're going to intercede in the August convention and make the superdelegates decisive, or open all the delegates up and see if they can get him off the ticket. Maybe tonight they don't think that, but they'll have a different view next week, the week after, and the week after. Especially, I don't think this is going to help his polls at all. I think people are tired of the anger and the screaming and the whole tempo. But I'm very worried that if Trump has to campaign in 50 states, and whether we like it or not, he's going to have to unite the party, and I think he can. But they don't have any margin of error. He's going to have to be the first Republican president to get 51% of the vote since 1988, and they've lost 7 out of the last 8 popular presidential.
Yes.
Did y'all actually think Biden was angry in his speech?
Orthodox Republican establishment. So Trump's going to have to reach to every community, and he's going to have to campaign, and it's going to have to bring people together. And he has no margin of error because they control the balloting in these swing states. And so it's going to be the most raucous, nastiest, loudest election in our lifetime, and I'm really worried about it. But I have confidence in the American people, and I think what they saw tonight was an old man raging and ranting and barking at the moon.
There's been I would say, an unprecedented crackdown on civil liberties during the Biden administration. If Trump loses, does that abate or does it accelerate? Do more people go to jail if Biden wins or loses?
Well, if Biden wins, I think we're in trouble, because we've seen what Merrick Garland did when they were afraid of being, whether they would be reelected or not. If he's reelected and he has 4 years, there's no bridles. And if he should win, he'd probably win the House. If Donald Trump wins, the thing about Donald Trump is everybody says he's out for revenge and everything, but you look at the FBI, the CIA, the DOJ, the IRS under his control, they weren't vindictive. They didn't go after their political enemies.
No.
He may talk tough, but he's not a vindictive person. And I think he has moments after the Iowa primary, and when he talks about getting even by being successful, that he's got it in him to unite the country. Biden doesn't. And I think Trump could. And I hope that he campaigns in the inner city. I hope he campaigns in places like where I live in the Central Valley. There's people that want a reason to vote for him. They're sick of Biden, and they feel that he did a good job. And all he has to do is appeal to that. And I hope he does.
I hope so too. Victor Davis Hanson, thank you so much for that.
So about 50% of y'all think Biden was angry during the speech. The other 50% say no.
So we are honored to invite into the studio for the first time to respond live Alex Jones, who has a different, more holistic view of what we're seeing. The great Alex Jones, who needs no introduction, one of the most famous people in American media.
I can do as good as you, but I'm blessed to be here. Great crew, great people, great to be here with you.
So just give me your big picture assessment of that.
I got to say, because we didn't even meet before we went on air. I was downstairs writing notes, and you basically said everything I was going to say, and so did the doctor. But you asked him a question out of the gates. You said, why do they lie so much? Do they think we're dumb, or what's going on?
Yeah.
They want to tell so many lies that you don't have time to counter them all. Because it would take 5 hours to counter all that. I mean,
I gave up in my note-taking.
Yeah, everything was a lie. And I mean, the biggest one was like, yeah, this woman got killed by an illegal alien. We're trying to stop that. I want to shut down the border. He said, when I win, immediately surge the border. And then they had the big NGOs, the State Department that funds the UN NGOs, have all the illegals come up here. They have
Okay, I'm sorry. we're not going to keep going on that. If you want to keep watching Alex Jones, you can go find him on Twitter with Tucker Carlson. I'm going to give you my summary, and we're just going to go through what I believe are the facts that I wrote down and the counter arguments that I have. I'm going to do it in a balanced manner, and if you want it, feel free to stay around, but I'm sorry, I can't listen to any more of this. Okay, so, like, I want to be clear. I don't really care what side anybody's on. I like every American, and I think everybody is entitled to their opinion, and we can have a coffee or a beer together with pretty much all of y'all, and if you're a Mormon, it'll be Diet Coke, and if you don't drink any of those, we'll find something to drink together. But, we some of this stuff, just calling everybody a liar and a scam, it's just, it doesn't cut it for me. All right, so let's just get into a clean summary here. Hey everyone, me Kevin here. In this video, we're going to do a clean summary of what was just said in the State of the Union. We're also going to go through a summary of what Tucker Carlson's criticisms were. Tucker Carlson did have some guests on his show, so we'll keep the commentary mostly on what Tucker said versus what his guests said. But first, why don't we go through Joe Biden's State of the Union? We'll keep it as fast as possible. First, on the White House live stream event, comments and the chat were turned off. Joe Biden began his speech about 26 minutes after the hour with a quote on Franklin Delano Roosevelt facing an unprecedented moment. He's trying to compare basically 1941, pre-World War II era, to, well, today and the issues that we face today. Freedom and democracy are under attack at home and overseas, he says, and if anybody thinks that Putin will stop at Ukraine, Joe Biden says, I assure you, he will not. This is where we should really start with debate. This is where, on one hand, you have people like Joe Biden who say, Vladimir Putin won't stop at Ukraine. He'll keep going to Poland, and he'll keep going further and deeper. That's why we have to stop Putin in Ukraine. Let's keep in mind that so far, Russia's incursion into Ukraine has been mostly focused on the eastern regions of Donetsk and the Dnipro River. Now, what's interesting here is you actually have folks who agree that Ukraine is holding back Russia, and then you have others who say, no, Russia is purposefully not going any deeper because all they want is a buffer zone. And that's where you create a debate. The debate that Kamala Harris potentially left open the door that Ukraine could join NATO. We just had Sweden join NATO today. The minister of Sweden sat next to Jill Biden. They were welcomed to NATO by Joe Biden this very day. Finland joined about 11 months ago on April 4th, 2023, so NATO is clearly continuing its expansion, and the door was sort of left open for Ukraine to join NATO at one day. And so one argument is that Putin stops at the eastern region after he builds his buffer. That's also a region that controls about 90% of Ukraine's oil reserves and energy reserves. And so potentially that could be desirable for Putin to harvest. And some folks say he'll stop there, either by choice or by the Ukrainian military with the support of the United States. Others say if we don't support Ukraine, Putin will keep going. This is where you kind of have to make your own decision as to what you think. If you haven't yet seen the Tucker Carlson Putin interview, I encourage you to watch it. Even if you don't like Tucker Carlson, you should watch it because Putin did like 98% of the talking. You really, out of like a couple hours, get about 5 minutes of Tucker. So it's a low percentage anyway. But so if you want to see into Putin's mind, though, I did think that was a good video, and I did a summary of that as well on my channel. You just type into YouTube, Meet Kevin Putin, and you'll see it. Former President Trump was quoted by Joe Biden as saying, do whatever the hell you want. And Joe Biden calls that, quote, dangerous and unacceptable. This is a reference to Donald Trump saying, if you don't pay your NATO membership fees, then we will not come protect you. And suggests that if you don't pay your membership fees, we would go as far as encouraging Russia to, quote, do whatever the hell you want. Because Donald Trump is making sort of this exaggerated argument that it's really important that you pay your membership fee. It's kind of a very classic real estate point of view where you come from the angle of pay your rent or leave. That's kind of the POV you're getting from Trump there, where that speech came from. Joe Biden made sure to bring that up. Joe Biden mentions that NATO prevents war and that history is in the making, that January 6th, and this is, of course, Biden being political because half of the country doesn't believe this. But Joe Biden argues that January 6th supporters promoted lies about the election, but they failed and America stood strong. Of course, there are a lot of people, including Donald Trump, who highly disagree with that. Joe Biden says you can't love our country only when you win. That's obviously a slam on Trump. Political violence has no place in America. There was a bit of a back and forth about the IVF situation. Donald Trump actually got involved into fact-checking here. This was quite interesting. Biden talked about Mrs. Beasley, who's 37 years old and could not get her scheduled IVF. That's in vitro fertilization. That's basically when you inseminate an egg in a petri dish. That is in vitro fertilization. After you have in vitro fertilization, you can transfer the embryo into a woman after you give the woman drugs to be prepared for the embryo, and then you could grow a baby that is functional, that can work very well. A lot of people use that, especially those with fertility issues. However, on February 16th, the Alabama Supreme Court made a decision to ban, essentially, they unintentionally banned IVF by determining that frozen embryos were children. But on March 4th, we actually saw, on March 7th, today, we actually saw Alabama's governor sign a law into effect allowing specifically in vitro fertilization. So Donald Trump actually truthed that change. That happened maybe a few hours ago. So it was kind of interesting to see Donald Trump truth that, hey, they actually allow IVF now, while Biden was talking about how IVF was banned. And then they had that mother there who was banned from getting an IVF transfer. Now she can. Joe Biden talked about, they had another mother sitting next to Jill Biden who had a fatal fetal anomaly and couldn't get an abortion in Texas. This is likely true. Texas does not allow fetal viability abortion. So like if the baby's going to die anyway, they do not have a fetal anomaly exception. So some pretty big words there. But anyway, a lot of states do, and that's usually what you see is most states allow abortion, including Texas, by the way, if the mother's life is going to be at risk. A lot of states allow a baby to essentially be terminated if they're going to die anyway, and that's usually to prevent damage to the mother. Most states do limit abortion after about 22, 23 weeks, mostly because, unless there's obviously some form of risk of death. And what you'll find is most of the abortion debate we have today sits somewhere between 16 weeks and 24 weeks in terms of like choice of abortion. Maybe you could go as far as saying 10 weeks to 24 weeks, especially if you look at DeSantis in Florida. Of course, there is a population of America that wants no abortion at all, zero. But it does appear, I would guess 70 to 80% of Americans are probably in that 10-week to 22-week period. And then, on one side, obviously, you have Florida. On the other side, you have California. And then there's a debate about where that line should be drawn. Keep in mind that most children, when they're in the womb, they have what's called an anatomy scan to see if, they have all their limbs and they're, capable of surviving at about 18 weeks. And a lot of women don't find out that they're pregnant until about week 5 or 6, sometimes even 7. So that's kind of why you have that debate come up. Just throwing that out as sort of trying to be as unbiased as possible. Even Donald Trump has suggested an abortion ban window of somewhere around 18 weeks. That's plus or minus where he's been sort of negotiating what his opinion is on this. A lot of folks are upset about the Roe v. Wade ruling, suggesting that this essentially prevented abortion from being able to occur. All that did was allow states to decide. So remember, that's important. Now states can individually decide their own rules. Of course, there is a debate that maybe there should be a unified national rule again. That is a debate. Household wealth, Joe Biden says, has expanded. This is true, but it's mostly expanded for white households. So yes, the gap between the top of the blue line and the yellow line has gotten a little less because the yellow and blue and the orange line at the bottom there have gotten a little larger, but the wealth gap is still pretty dang big between races here. Okay, then inflation did go from 9 to 3%. It's trending lower. That is true. Wages are up. That is true. Real wages are positive again. We did get bingo in our event. We got bingo from no mention of Trump by name, just a pronoun like other candidate. We got 50-year low on unemployment. We got that one word for word. We did get the freebie, Joe shows up. Talk about the CHIPS Act, funding Ukraine. I didn't hear the Inflation Reduction Act part, but I may have just missed that. And we did have talk about Gaza and building a pier over in Gaza. That was an interesting one. So this idea that I guess America is going to work with Gaza and Israel to build a pier that gives access to land that could theoretically be gated so they could ship in aid rather than airdropping it, and then sort of let it out there. That way you don't have to go through the Rafah crossing, let's say, where you've got a lot of turmoil right now, and you've had disasters with aid shipments and deliveries going through Egypt. So you have some problems there that maybe a pier would end up solving, but somebody's got to build it. Joe Biden suggested no boots on the ground, but still somebody's going to have to build it. Presumably that would be Israel, who would then be funded to build it, and it would be Israelis who are building it with American dollars. We like to call those Biden bucks around here. Specifically, we joke that these are Biden bucks because when we're in the office, we're like, all right, which companies do we want to invest in? Well, let's start with which ones are getting Biden bucks. Anyway, the UAW president was there. Biden talked about how unions built the middle class. Talked about the $14.2 billion funding program called the Affordable Connectivity Program. This was basically a expanded affordable internet program that gave subsidies of $30 to $75 per month, $75 if you're tribal, to lower income areas for internet services. Joe Biden talked about when America gets knocked down, we get up. It kind of reminds me of the song. One of my employees had their kneecap dislocated when we went on a team ski trip. And while he was getting fixed up at the doctor's office, I was blasting, and then I got kicked out. I was blasting the music. When I get, what is it? Well, I get knocked down, but I get up again. Sorry, I had to go on the tangent, but I love that song. Anyway, cost of housing is coming down, Joe Biden says. He says he wants to provide an annual tax credit of $400 a month when you buy or upgrade a home to get a larger sized home. This is interesting. This is a proposal. It doesn't exist yet. This would essentially be the equivalent of getting about $64,000 for free in purchasing power on real estate. You can just sort of divide the number per month by about 6.25, and you get roughly how much more you can afford to pay in terms of real estate. He talks about getting rid of title insurance on refinancing for federally backed mortgages, saving about $1,000. He's not wrong, but in many areas that might be as high as $2,000. So getting rid of title insurance on a refinance for a Fannie or Freddie loan, that would actually be a great thing. Now, why they charge it is just frankly ridiculous in my opinion. Blockchain could probably entirely get rid of title insurance anyway, but that would help people reduce the cost of refinancing, especially as rates are so high. So I do support that. Well, he talks about building 2 million new affordable homes. I'm not a big fan of building new affordable homes, mostly because affordable homes or homes with affordable housing restrictions usually have limitations on your ability to build your wealth because they have either resale restrictions or rent restrictions, which I think are a mistake. I do agree with building 2 million new homes, removing that affordable restriction. The more homes you build, the more you make all housing more affordable. But affordable designated homes usually have real problems with them. So I'm not a big fan of that. I'm a fan of more normal homes. That's what I ran for governor on. By the way, if you want to meet myself and my team and other speakers in person, we're holding an event on June 21st to June 23rd in Vegas. We're announcing another speaker tomorrow at 1 p.m., so we'll be raising those ticket prices, and then we'll be announcing the location within Vegas within the next week or so. Joe Biden talks about cracking down on price-fixing landlords. This has to do with corporations out in Arizona that apparently were using sort of algos to coordinate rent hikes. That doesn't sound too good. So then he talks about builders getting federal tax credits, basically free preschool for low-income 3- and 4-year-olds. reducing debt for nearly 4 million Americans. This is true, by the way. About $138 billion of debt has been forgiven for about 3.9 million borrowers. Joe Biden talks about wanting to increase taxes on billionaires. He wants a fair tax code, and he says that the average tax rate for billionaires is about 8.2%. The Washington Post disagrees with that. I did a quick fact check. They say, quote, if you check the Treasury Department calculations themselves for what the richest Americans already pay in taxes, you would see that the top 1% pay in excess of 20% in income taxes and more than 30% when you add up all the taxes they pay. Biden talks about shrinkflation and rising prices. This is not a big surprise here. The biggest sort of contention, though, in his entire speech came about him suggesting, look, we had a border patrol bill, a really good border patrol bill. That's what, Joe Biden says. That bill got killed in the Senate. Joe Biden suggests that was because Donald Trump was told to call folks in the Senate and kill the bill. This might not be entirely untrue. In other words, it's probably true that Donald Trump pressured folks in the Senate to not pass this bill because the disaster at the border does make Joe Biden look bad. People say that Joe Biden is lying, that he has the authority to shut down the border. Joe Biden says he needed this bill to have the authority to shut down the border and to process more asylum claims, to have more judges, and more authority to actually solve the border problem. It is worth noting, and it is true, that right now there are over 2 million cases before asylum judges. This is the chart of how these cases have moved up. There are a lot of pending cases for asylum, a lot of work to do. The immigration situation is a true crisis and a true disaster. Joe Manchin actually put out a piece on this, and he basically decided no longer to run for Senate because this bill failed. He said that the bill had the support of 18,000 Border Patrol agents who are fighting like hell. He said this is not political. This was a bipartisan bill. It would have hired 27 more Border Patrol and ICE officers and would have allowed them to remove every single adult without a lengthy judicial process. It would have ended catch and release so individuals could not simply claim asylum and be released into the country for 7 to 10 years. It would have increased deportations, raised the threshold for asylum, and ended parole at the border. Basically, it would have solved a lot of issues, and that bill got killed. Now, there are arguments as to why it got killed. Most of the arguments do point the finger at Trump, saying Trump didn't want it because Trump wants to pass the border bill when he's president. That's really probably going to come down to everybody's opinion on which way that leans. Marjorie Taylor Greene did shout about Laken Riley regarding the border. She did actually hand Joe Biden a button. It's actually this button right here. We got a good picture of it. And Joe Biden did hold that button up during his speech, talking about this girl, this 20-something girl who was killed on a run by an illegal immigrant. And usually Democrats don't use the phrase illegal, but Joe Biden did here. So he purposefully wanted to go for that verbiage to make it very clear that he is also outraged about that, trying to show that everybody deserves to be outraged about that. And then, of course, he brings that back to why his bill should have passed. Joe Biden talks about raising the minimum wage, passing the PRO Act. The PRO Act, by the way, would expand labor rights for collective bargaining. A lot of the summary, by the way, it's at ehack.com if that's more convenient for you to kind of read some of the summary. I always try to throw these things up on ehack.com. Of course, I add more context and try to make it easier in the videos, but text-based is over there. Biden also said that Trump said, just get over it after a shooting in Iowa. This was part of a longer speech of Donald Trump's. I'm not taking sides here. The actual full quote is, it's just horrible, so surprising to see it here, but we have to get over it. We have to move forward. I don't think Donald Trump was saying, just get over it. I think Donald Trump was saying, like, all right, like it happened, let's move forward and maybe talk about solutions or what we could do to solve this. But yeah, the choice of wording there probably wasn't the best because it's it's sort of low-hanging fruit for Biden or some of the Trump detractors to pick up on. Joe Biden pledges to bring home the hostages, says that Hamas hides like cowards behind civilians, We talked about the pure ready in Gaza. Says that we have the lowest trade deficit with China in a decade. This is true. We've actually got a chart of that United States goods trade deficit with China. You can see that is actually the lowest in 10 years. So that was true. Joe Biden says it's a goal to end cancer. I think everybody wants to end cancer. And says he ends his speech with saying that he believes in the idea that we're all created equal, and even if he was too young at one point or now too old, he thinks he's still perfectly capable. Donald Trump argued that NATO was strong because Trump made them pay. Donald Trump claimed that Biden let in 15 million illegals. In 2021, at least, there were about 10.5 million illegals estimated to be in the country. So there is this sort of counter argument that, like, wait, how could you have more than we have? But then there might be counting issues or whatever. It is worth noting there is a graph here of illegals in the country, and that number was actually declining from about 2009 to right about 2020, and you started seeing that tick up again right there in about 2021. Biden did take office in 2021, though it's unclear exactly where that chart begins within 2021. Donald Trump calls the climate change priorities the Green New Scam, blamed Biden for being substantially late. Trump said that Biden shouldn't shake people's hands as he's leaving because he keeps coughing into his right hand. Trump has been considered a germaphobe via his own books before. Tucker Carlson, you know, like, I really enjoyed Tucker Carlson's interview with Lex Friedman, and I really enjoyed Tucker Carlson's interview with Putin. I didn't really like Tucker Carlson's live response. To me, it was it was clearly pre-scripted. It was really, I think, mostly hyperbole. Tucker really only argued that we're closer to nuclear war today than we've ever been before, and that Mike Johnson is bought out and he's on board with supporting the Biden administration's agenda because he was nodding. Keep in mind, Johnson was promised by Democratic leadership that he'd be protected if he brought the $60 billion Ukraine bill to the floor for Democrats to vote on. Not necessarily saying he would vote for it or that others would, just like procedurally, can we negotiate to at least let the bill go to the floor? Keep in mind, Republicans control the House, so it doesn't even necessarily mean that it would pass. You would need Republican votes to get it to pass anyway, and so Johnson could bring the bill to the floor knowing full well that it would fail anyway. So it's probably more of a gesture of good faith. But Tucker Carlson's response really was that everything about Ukraine and Russia was just lie after lie after lie. He didn't really provide fact checks here. He I think could have gone a lot deeper. I think because they were trying to like rush a response, they put together a pretty quick response on Russia, and then they put a really quick piece together on voter ID. Now, I actually think Tucker landed an argument here. I personally do think that the way to make sure people can access voting is by showing an ID, but then if somebody can't afford an ID, then give away free IDs at the DMV after verifying somebody is who they say they are with their fingerprints or whatever, right? So like, I think you could solve the ID problem, but then have voter ID. Some people say, well, that's a barrier. Now somebody has to take off work and go to the DMV. Fine. Then like have funding for the DMV to be open on a Saturday and free IDs for, you know, low-income individuals who need it just to be able to vote, right? There are other ways of solving that. So I actually agree with Tucker on that one regarding the voter ID issue, though a lot of people see that as voter disenfranchisement, specifically more so those on the left. And again, I try to be balanced in my commentary here. It's ultimately up for you to decide. Tucker Carlson did have a couple of guests on. Alex Jones was the second one. I'm just gonna be honest, I didn't really listen to it. Mostly as soon as Alex Jones started saying everything was a lie, I had a feeling that we weren't gonna get many facts, so I did tune out of that. I'm not a big fan of saying everybody's a liar. I'm not here to say that Joe Biden or Trump don't lie, but I'm also here to say that they don't only lie. Like, both of them don't only lie. Again, that's for us, though, to figure out where the facts are. So that's what I tried to do. So that was sort of my takeaway of all of this. I was disappointed, really kind of disappointed in Tucker's fact check there, but whatever. He does his thing. So anyway, that's my commentary on his portion. And that is my summary of the Joe Biden State of the Union. So if you found this helpful, consider subscribing. We're getting close to that 2 million subscribers number, which is pretty cool. So consider subscribing. We'll bring you some more as unbiased as possible breakdowns. And do consider joining me over on at our Vegas event between June 21st to 23rd. Go to meetkevin.com to learn more about that. That's also where we have our courses on building your wealth. And really appreciate you all for being here. Thank you so much. Goodbye.